All right, let me know if you can hear me now. Can you all hear me now? Okay, good. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so I had it set to that mic and tested it, and apparently something happened. So we're going to use this speaker, or this microphone, which might not be the best, but we're going to deal with it. All right, now that we are back and everything is awesome. Yeah, the microphone was plugged in. Don't get it. Anyway, all right, so let's start over. So I forgot what I was saying. So, I've been in this industry long enough to know that when something like this comes down the pike, there is a lot of misinformation that thus follows it, and a lot of speculation, a lot of sky is falling, and a lot of things that, let's face it, when somebody comes up with a negative idea or a positive idea, puts that online, other people read it, believe it, spread it. That's how ignorance spreads. And that's the reason why I wanted to do this live stream, was because as soon as this documentary series came out, I saw so much kind of speculation, and that speculation led to misinformation. And I wanted to do this live stream to kind of dispel a lot of those kind of myths that are surrounding this documentary series. So this live stream is going to be in 3 parts. I'm going to give you my kind of impression of what I think is going to happen, my impression of the overall documentary, episode 1, as it were. And then I'm going to bring on Phil Goss, and we're going to talk about the impacts that this film may or may not have on our reptile world. I'm going to bring on a mystery YouTuber guest. Comment below if you can guess who that person is. And then I'm going to bring on Tom Crutchfield himself to talk a little bit about his involvement in this documentary series and kind of how this has changed his life. Talk a little bit about what he talked about in the documentary series. And from there, we will come away with a more well-rounded understanding, hopefully. Now, this is going to be a fundraiser for USARK, so please get in those super chats. I think one of the things, and I'll talk to Phil and expound on this a little bit more, is that when something like this happens, does it have a direct impact to us? Or are people that couldn't care if we existed, people couldn't care that we love these animals, that we, care for these animals? They don't care about that. They just want that legislation passed. And is that going to be a knee-jerk reaction? And is that the danger of this documentary series and the impact on our world? So we're going to have a long conversation here. But again, it is a USARK fundraiser, so get those super chats in. I just want to quickly, hey, from Sweden, what's my favorite reptile? Everybody asks me that, and it's like asking which one of your kids is your favorite. I don't know, bull snakes. Let's just say that. So I'm just going to go in real quick and kind of talk about this this documentary series. And as somebody who, has made a lot of documentaries, I used to be in the film world before I went to YouTube. And I gotta say that Eric Good, the filmmaker behind this, he is a very talented filmmaker. He's a very good documentarian. And he has an ability to kind of keep us engaged in topics that we know nothing about or cared about before we hit that play button. And then he kind of sucks us in and makes us care about his subject, which is the sign of a really good documentarian. I really enjoy his movies. I enjoyed Tiger King. Chimp Crazy, I didn't have a horse in that race, I guess. And it wasn't my favorite of his. But I will say that after watching the very first episode of this 5-part series, I found myself hooked. I mean, I found myself really engaged with it. But when you create a documentary series for HBO, for Netflix, for whatever, there is a lot of kind of rules that go into that. And one of those rules is that you have to keep people hooked immediately. You have to have something in the beginning of this series that keeps people hooked and holds them in so that they come back and they watch the rest of the series. And I think I'm gonna be very careful in my wording about this. Therefore, the very first episode of a series has to have all the good stuff in it, right? You have to keep that audience engaged so that they keep coming back. And I gotta say that about, I don't know, 15 minutes in, or about 45 minutes, let's just say, into watching this very first episode, I all of a sudden realized that if you aren't into reptiles, you've probably clicked off of this like long ago. I found it engaging because I'm in this world. I've been in this world for a long time, and I enjoy the history of it. And Eric did a really good job of showing the history of how basically the reptile world today has kind of come from these almost nefarious beginnings. Eric, thank you so much for that super chat. That's great. Let's get this party started. Yes. All right. So like if you're into House of Dragons, for instance, which I kind of used to be, and you're watching season 3 started out so epic that we were so excited to really deep dive into season 3. They put the war, they put so much special effects. I mean, it was absolutely engaging, and it drew you in and it kept you there. And then if you're watching the rest of season 3 of House of Dragons, it's so boring that I find myself kind of drifting off and not even really paying attention. That's called front loading. So from that perspective, did we just see the best part of this documentary series in the very first episode, and are other episodes that are going to come going to kind of drag off after that initial hook? So anyway, your Fortnite skin, dude, that was so funny when I read that. I will look into maybe getting a Fortnite skin. I don't know how to do that, but there's got to be a way. Anyway, so the episode started out just on a note that just kind of was like, are you kidding me? And for those of you who have watched it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a guy who does not represent us free-handling a king cobra and then proclaiming that he knows exactly what he's doing after he almost gets bit in the face. A totally irresponsible free handling of this king cobra, and that's how this documentary series started. And I was just like, okay, here we go. This is going to be really, really bad. But then it moved on from that and really kind of deep dove. Is dove past tense for dive? Deep dived? I'm a writer, not an editor. But it kind of went into the history of how all of this started. And that's the aspect of this that I really enjoyed. I'm reading notes. Hang on. Diamond Boas, I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be as bad as everybody thinks that it's going to be. But like, even in regardless of the first 5 minutes, it didn't feel like it was some sort of some sort of gotcha documentary against us. Like, oh, look at how bad every single reptile keeper in the world is. It didn't do that at all. And I don't think that that was Eric Good's intention with this. And Eric Good has been interviewed in tons of magazines, newspapers, whatever. And even in an article in the LA Times, he talked about how he been keeping reptiles since he was 6 years old. Eric Good is a herper. He keeps reptiles. And he even said that it's basically a historic look at the reptile smuggling going back more than a half a century. Now, you got to remember that they've been filming this for about, Tom can shed more light on this, but I think they've been filming it for like over a decade, at least over a decade. They've been filming this. So this is a long time production, and it's going to deep dive into kind of the history. But, Eric was quoted in the LA Times article that he was proud of how the Big Cat Safety Act came into effect after Tiger King. A lot of people don't know that that was already a law before Tiger King came out. So it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction to the Tiger King. But there was also laws that, banned raising chimps at home after chimp crazy. So yeah, it's one of those things that it's like, okay, is this going to have the same impact on reptiles? But he was quoted in the LA Times article that, kids should be able to have a bearded dragon or a leopard gecko or a ball python. And he was quoted in saying that he doesn't want anti-reptile legislation to come from this documentary. And after watching the first episode, I see that. I see that. Even the Hollywood Reporter said that, he once owned exotic reptiles, and don't critique the people who own exotic reptiles. And he went on to be quoted that, especially since a lot of perfectly normal people probably own reptiles, we do. There's a lot of not normal people out there. But, he said that we can all agree that it's bad to illegally traffic them. And I completely agree. There is a major difference between illegal importation of reptiles and legal importation of reptiles. On the other hand, if all of that didn't happen all those years ago, back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, let's face it, we'd be going to reptile expos today and seeing what morphs of corn snakes and king snakes and garter snakes we've all bred, because that's all that we have. So we have all the diversity that we have in today's world, sadly, because of what occurred 50, 60 years ago. So anyway, let me just quickly read some of these comments here. I'll go back a little bit. Give me a sec. Yeah, that is true. After Tiger King, no one took care of those animals on his property. That was, when lawmakers do this sort of thing and they all pat each other on the back to say, hey, we just saved big cats, nobody goes and does the follow-up to see how those laws have adversely really affected the big cats that were kind of left behind. So that's a very good point. Anyway, I'll go on and read my notes. Yeah, so anyway, I made the point that, we have what we have because of this nefarious trade all the way back in the 60s and 70s. But I will say this, in protecting these reptiles and stopping the illegal import, which, let's face it, still goes on today, but on a much smaller scale. After traveling the world and going to these habitats, and I'm thinking very specifically about West Africa, where we were finding savanna monitors on the edges of palm plantations because their entire habitats have been destroyed for palm plantations, and they have just a tiny swath of habitat on the edge of these now farms to live. And I don't think that a lot of conservationists, and I don't think that a lot of lawmakers take this into consideration, that yes, you can protect the animals from being imported, but with the intent to keep them in wild places. The wild places are not being protected. The wild places, their wild habitats, they are disappearing. These animals have no place to live in the wilds anymore. And we were in very remote areas, far away from cities, far away from human civilization, and it was all destroyed for palm plantation. And I don't think that that is being addressed. And therefore, the question becomes, because we got those animals out of that situation and now we are captive breeding in our homes, does that really save the animals? Is that part of conservation? Is that part of saving these animals from being completely destroyed in the wild because they have no place to live in the wild? Did we create, in fact, an invisible ark? And was that one of the unintended consequences, not consequences, but maybe benefits of this really nefarious illegal trade that occurred back in the 60s and 70s? looking for silver linings. I'm going to talk about bad points of this. I'm going to talk about good points of this. I want this to be well-rounded, and I want to kind of raise these questions to get people to think a little bit about, you know, is it all bad? Is it all good? I never think in those terms. I never think in black and white terms. It's all good. It's all bad. There's always, you know, the middle ground, and that's where I try to live. Yeah, Bill Stewart, how you doing? Protecting the animal without protecting the environment is not protecting the animal. Conserving into extinction. Billy, you and I have had talks about this a lot, and that is exactly what it is. It is protecting animals into extinction because they are not covering all the bases of protecting that animal. They just say, okay, it's illegal for you to have this animal. Great, law passed. Let's pat ourselves on the back and move on to taking away people's health care, whatever politicians do. And it never goes beyond that. It never addresses the entire issue. So anyway, going back to the documentary real quick, I also found that about 45 minutes into the episode, I was absolutely hooked. I was absolutely intrigued. This was a history that I knew about, but didn't know the details about, like Eric Goode was presenting to us. But I also realized something kind of interesting, in that about 45 minutes into it, I realized that if you aren't into reptiles, you've probably already clicked off of this because it's so boring to you. This was a passion project of Eric Goode's, and he's mentioned that several times. And he almost catered it to the reptile keeper. And he did that kind of at the expense of the general public. I don't think that the general public at large is really going to be engaged in this story. Yes, he did the rivalry quotient of it, because that's how you tell a story. That's how you keep people engaged. Is this person good? Is this person bad? Vice versa. That's a story that he had that keeps people engaged in the story. Otherwise, it's just a dry documentary that is kind of unwatchable, so to speak, or watchable only if you're really into that subject matter. And so I really question whether or not the general public is going to be as engaged in this documentary as reptile people are. Again, I was engaged. I loved it. I want to see more. But again, if you're not into reptiles, you know, they probably clicked off of it and went and watched, you know, Stewart Fails to Save the Universe, which I'm really enjoying, actually. But having said that, hey, Dinosaur Roar, thank you so much for your super chat for USARK. Thank you so much. But having said that, I wanted to go in and do a little bit of research to see what the general public was saying about this. I wanted to read the reviews that were coming out on, you know, Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb and things, to see what the general public was thinking about this and what they were thinking about us in particular. And the reviews that came in that aren't reptile people, they're important, because those are the voices that will ultimately judge us and, you know, support those laws that may come down the pike against us, without having really any good understanding of what's in those laws. And neither do the lawmakers, for that matter, and I'll discuss that later. But what was interesting is that a ton of comments from the public thought that this was about priests or evangelicals because it's called Monsters of God. They didn't know it was about snakes. They didn't know it was about reptiles. The title was very misleading to a lot of people in the general public. They thought that it was a documentary showing, you know, whatever the issues that that how do I say this without getting a foot in my mouth or a kick upside the head? Some of the problems that are facing the church, let's just say, they thought that the documentary was about them because it was called Monsters of God. So anyway, it's very interesting to kind of get an all-around encompassing idea of what the general public is going to think of this, and what the, hang on a second, and what critics are saying, what we're saying, that sort of thing. So For those of you who watched it real quick, before I bring Phil on, comment here. And Adam, yeah, that's not funny. I actually need these because right here, these aren't glasses in order for me to see. They are X-ray specs, and I'm looking right at you, Adam. Anyway, now I got thrown off, Adam. Damn it. Yes. So for those of you who have seen this, before I bring Phil on in about 5 minutes, I'm going to read some comments, but let me know in these comment section what you guys thought of it. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in those comment sections. Get those super chats in. Again, this is a fundraiser for USARK. I am going to talk to Phil a little bit about the laws that might be presented that would be detrimental to us from this documentary series, if any. And I'll expound on that in a little bit. But I want to know what you guys think if you watched the series or the first episode so far. Go ahead and comment down here, and I'll read some of these here. I'm going to go back a little bit here. Vanessa, how you doing? Billy, yeah, that was my exact quote. Yes. Yeah. Bow Turtle Hero, yeah. Loss of habitat is the biggest issue of survival of wild populations of most critters, hands down, all over the world. I am seeing this devastation in real time. And at the end of the day, when I'm in the field and I go back to the hotel, I'm depressed at what I'm seeing out there. And it's all over the world. I mean, you know, I don't know if you can stop it or not, but it's not going to be stopped with, you know, laws that keep Johnny from keeping a corn snake. Wild Horse says, I found it very interesting. I actually remember seeing some of the diamond and carpet pythons that were brought in the 90s. Yeah, that was the heyday. You know, and that is, I'm going to go off on a tangent on your comment here, Wild Horse. Australian reptiles. Every single Australian reptile that we have got out of Australia, probably not through legal sources, with the exception of probably bearded dragons. One of the ways that and we all know that Australia is very protective of their wildlife. There is no importation, there is no exportation, except if you're a zoo. Now, zoos in the United States don't usually sell off animals to the private sector. They sell them to other zoos, other AZA accredited institutions. It's not the case in Europe. So if you can get an export permit for any animal in the wild in Australia as long as you are an accredited zoo. So what was happening a while ago, back in the 90s, 80s, probably still happens today, is that the zoos in Europe were legally importing carpet pythons, exporting as it were, bearded dragons. Most of the reptiles that we now know and love that come from Australia came out of Australia legally through European zoos, and then those European zoos bred them and sold those offspring to the private sector, and that's how a lot of the reptiles from Australia got into our hobby. But let's face it, a lot of them didn't go that route. And I have always said to my Australian friends that I talk to about this, that if Australia changed their export laws and started exporting only morphs, only the morphs, no wild type animals, so albino blue tongues or any of the children's pythons morphs that they have in Australia, if the Australian government would say, okay, you can export those morphs, we're going to tax the hell out of it, not only would those breeders be overnight millionaires, but Australia, through those taxes, would be a lot richer. And will that happen one day? Don't know. But it would certainly cut back on the demand for those animals being smuggled out of Australia. You would kill that entire industry in one piece of legislation. Hope they do it one day. Hana, hi. We're going to pull Phil on in 2 minutes, but I'm going to take a minute and read some of these. Have a baby chinchilla. Her name is Strawberry Dave. I like it. Billy says, totally agree. Okay. Bournemouth Bug says, I certainly found it fascinating from a historical standpoint. So did I. As long as it looked upon as long as it's looked upon that we used to do it and not what we currently do. I agree. This is a historical documentary. I mean, it really is. The problem is, are people going to recognize it as a historical documentary, or are they going to sit there and think that this is happening yesterday? That's the problem. And I think that Eric really addressed that by giving dates and saying this happened back then and whatever. And people's interpretations are going to be Purple's interpretation. So yes, I can't lose my glasses if they're all on my head and face at the same time. I take these glasses off my head, they are gone, like seriously gone. They have to stay up there all the time or they're gone. These, yeah, it's just because, you know, I'm getting old at 28 years old here. All right, so let's pull Phil on. Actually, before I pull Phil on, I just want to take, I look good in glasses. Thank you, Hannah. Oh, here we go. Joe Rogan did an interview with Good the day before episode 1. Why doesn't Phil get him and Tom to set up an interview so we can bring, we're going to talk to Phil about that. So Steve, come back and mention that later. One, thank you for your super chat. It's on an example of a bigger problem. People today can know their field, know nothing outside it. It's so true. Lots of smart people know little or nothing about nature. Isn't that a sad commentary? And it's absolutely 100% true. At this point, I believe Dave's son. Oh, we're talking about my sunglasses again. Yes, they have. And if I remove these, it's going to pull my brain right through my forehead. I can never remove my sunglasses. Anyway, how tall is Adam? Adam is 3'7". And if you've ever seen him without shoes, he does in fact have hobbit feet. All right, so let's pull Phil on. Oh, Phil.
Well, hello, Dave.
And now we can't hear Phil. Hang on a second. Man.
I'm unmuted on my end.
Hang on, Phil.
Yep.
I thought StreamYard was supposed to be so good for live streams. Phil, I think you got to do it on your end. Hang on. Phil. Can you hear me? I think you have to unmute your computer or do something on your end so that we can hear you. So, see, everybody, this is why we all film videos and then edit them and not go live. Oh, 37 and a half, Adam. I'm so sorry. Phil, can you hear us? Like, give us a thumbs up if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
But I can't hear you.
But everybody else can.
Phil? Okay, everybody can hear Phil but me.
Yes,
apparently.
but Dave, I really didn't want to talk to you, so I set it up with StreamYard so that you couldn't hear me, but everyone else could.
All right, well, I can hear you now.
Oh, dang it. That was bad timing then. I'm fine. And I learned something. I mean, I didn't know I was older than you. I'm 29 and you're only 28. So
Yeah.
Now you can call me old man when you see me.
That's right.
Yep.
Now, if you grew a beard, would it be gray?
Or I actually had to shave it because it looks like yours and it's all white. So
I'm embracing this. I really am. I mean, as it was growing in, I was like, this is horrible. But no, I kind of am.
It's not horrible, Dave.
No, I don't think it is. Otherwise, I would be investing in Just for Men.
It is what it is. You're 28 and your beard's white.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yep. All right. So thank you for coming on the live stream to shed a little bit of light into what happens now. So why don't we just start with giving your overall impression of not necessarily the series, but to address people's concern that when something like this comes our way, everybody is in that kind of sky is falling panic mode. And do we need to be?
Yeah, I've heard the speculation, and I'll talk about two things quickly. The first one, this is old news. 2008, Brian Christie wrote a book called The Lizard King that talks about Hank Molt and Tom Crutchfield and Wang and or Wong. So all these guys have already been talked about. So this is literally 18 years old news, but now it's in documentary form. And Brian Christie was even some type of consultant on Monsters of God. So this isn't new information. And also the Tiger King. I've seen that posted where the Tiger King documentary came out. That's what led to the Big Cat Public Safety Act. And you hit on it earlier, but that had been around since 2013, that bill. So that wasn't new bill. Yeah. It was gaining traction in each session of Congress. So you could argue that the Tiger King was a tipping point, but it probably would have passed either that session or the next session with or without Tiger King. So and comparing the reptile world and 15 million people keeping pet reptiles in the US versus how many people keep big cats in the US, you got to compare apples and apples when you talk about this stuff. Sure. So we're not going to see a mirroring of the Tiger King effect.
Okay. So one of my concerns is that when people, especially special interest groups, see this and equate what has happened 50 years ago with what is happening now and not making that distinction between the two. And they go to politicians, and I know that our system is kind of whacked because those special interest groups are actually writing the laws, then giving it to the politicians and saying, here, you go champion this, and here's a pocket full of money for doing so. That's my fear that's going to come from this, is that the special interest groups that will never take the time to understand who we are, they just have this knee-jerk reaction to what they see on television, and they write these laws. Again, they give it to a politician. Here's a bucket full of money. Go champion this. That's my fear of what's going to come out of that. Is that founded or unfounded?
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid fear, but I think, if anything, this is going to be possibly a talking point. So all that legislation you were discussing already exists. Unfortunately, you nailed it. Politicians rarely write legislation. It's someone else writing it. And I'll give a quick example. I think 5 years ago now, we saw the exact same legislation for what we call a Traveling Animal Act, where it's illegal to take an animal out in public if it's transported in a car.
Right, I remember that.
We saw the exact same language in North Carolina, Oregon, and at the federal level, because there was a list of species. It was worded exactly the same, and some of the species it banned to take in those programs were all tortoises and all monitor lizards. And again, it was identical in all three of those locations. So obviously a legislator in each one of those states and at the federal level, a congressperson didn't sit down and write the exact same text. It was written by an animal rights group and pushed. Right. So again, some legislation has probably already been proposed. They may add this as some type of talking point, but if that comes up, obviously USARK could jump in and let everybody know and provide some correct information.
That's good. First of all, Tracy, thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate that. If any of you have any questions for Phil, please comment over yonder. So there's a lot of people talking online. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there talking about how the sky is falling, that this is the worst thing that's ever happened, blah, blah, blah. What is your take on all that?
Yeah, it's not falling. Like I said, this may be added as a talking point, but I mean, if anything, we may see a push here and there for maybe like a new venomous ban, but that's already banned in a lot of places. As far as broad sweeping things, it's not going to happen. It's just not.
Good.
Yeah.
So the impact that the Tiger King had, and were there any laws that you know of that came out as a knee-jerk reaction to the Tiger King?
Not that I know of, because again, you can't make that argument for the Big Cat Public Safety Act because Tiger King was 2021, I believe. Is that right? It was 21 or 22,
I
somewhere
don't know.
around there.
I'm
But
losing all together all of a sudden.
yeah. Oh, am I good? So
You're good.
anyway, Tiger King was 2021 or 2022 when it came out. So you can't make the argument that that was because of Tiger King, because the Big Cat Public Safety Act hit Congress in 2013. It was, 8 or 9 years before there was a Tiger King. So, that was the only thing that kind of passed around the same time, but that did not come out of Tiger King.
Okay. And Chimp Crazy, anything that you know of that came out?
I mean, the same thing. There was already the Primate Public Safety Act was already in Congress, so that was already going on before Chimp Crazy. I'm not sure if that legislation passed before or after Chimp Crazy, though, honestly. But again, it was already around, so it wasn't introduced and written because of Chimp Crazy.
Okay, so all the people out there that are fearing that there's going to be new legislation that's going to happen because of this show, what we're getting is that that we know of legislation came from the Tiger King. Those laws that were passed were already in effect before the Tiger King, and the same with Chimp Crazy. So it would make sense for us to believe that that's probably what's going to happen here. I mean, there might not be any new legislation that comes from a knee-jerk reaction to the show. Is that correct?
Right. Like I said, we may see this added as a talking point to try and pass like the Lacey Act amendments that we've stopped before. But again, we've already been down that road, so we'll be ready if that does happen. But it's not going to be new legislation per se.
Okay, good. Billy, thank you so much for your $20. That is awesome. Bill does a lot. This is Bill Stewart. Bill does a
absolutely.
lot
Hey, Bill.
Volunteer work for USARK at Tinley and places, and he's just such a great friend. I do want to go into one thing, and that's to kind of praise you a little bit here, because the work that USARK does is so important. And I don't think that enough people really appreciate what you and USARK actually does for them. I remember, when USARK first started, and before you came on, and what was going on with it. And now that you're here, I don't know how to word this without embarrassing you and without saying like I'm, kissing your butt, which I am. But you personally are instrumental for finding a lot of these hidden laws. It's called paper clipping. And what paper clipping is that, let's say we've got a bill that says you can only use your cell phone from this time to this time. It's not really a bill, but let's say that a bill says something like that. Another politician can say, hey, great, I'm going to take this piece of legislation and add it to that bill, paper clipping it, and see if I can push through my bill without anybody noticing that it's being passed. And only after that bill is passed do people realize what laws were just made, and everybody says, wait a second, but the bill is already passed, it's too late. It needs to be abolished in our government. But the point is that you've actually gone in and you've found some of those anti-reptile legislation that were paper clipped and hidden in the wording of other bills that had nothing to do with it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the last time that was a major alert for USARK was the Competes Act, which is different than the Compete Act that is currently in Congress, in case anybody gets scared. Totally separate. But, it was dealing with technology and making microchips and all this stuff. And then buried in the 1,860 pages, I believe it was, literally a federal bill that was almost 2,000 pages long. Like you're saying, they tacked in these Lacey Act amendments that would have made it illegal to import any species that was not on the white list that they were going to come up with, and do some other things. It would have reversed the lawsuit that we won back in 2017. But yeah, it was bad news, and it was just buried in there. And if it hadn't been noticed and USARK put on alert, it may have passed and gone through the process. So yeah, it was pretty ugly. But yeah, that's what USARK does. We find this stuff. Yeah.
How did you find that when other politicians it literally flew over their head?
Well, so during that time, I was watching a lot of, just like everything else, there are actually some politicians who have social media now. So they're making posts and things like that. And it wasn't specifically on those Lacey Act amendments, but there was a congresswoman who called out all the other members of Congress saying, I'll bet I'm the only member of Congress who's actually read through the 1,800 pages of this bill. So, yeah, I mean, they have staffers who do that stuff. And unless you get some grassroots effort or advocacy like USARK who calls out sections of a bill, politicians aren't going to pay any mind to it. They're not going to go look at those Lacey Act amendments and see what it really does unless it's brought to their attention. Because again, that was one bill that was over 1,800 pages long on top of the hundreds of other bills that they have. So anybody who believes that politicians are reading all these bills doesn't understand how our government works. It just doesn't happen.
There's a lot of
So
people who
again,
don't understand how our government works, but that's what that is the fear. That is the fear that I have, that they're just going to either, these special interest groups are going to write these laws and slip them through, or they're going to paperclip them, and all of a sudden we wake up one morning and we're screwed. So,
yeah, and that one was so big. We have different systems we use, Westlaw and LexisNexis, that we use to monitor bills. And that one was actually so big that our alert system didn't pick it up. It was actually, we knew the bill had been introduced with the amendments, and our federal lobbyist said, I heard a rumor that there was some animal rights stuff in here. So I actually just went and read through the 1,900 pages and found the Lacey Act amendment. So that was actually a manual process that one of our systems didn't pick up just because of how big the bill was.
yeah. So again, guys, we owe Phil and everybody at USARK everything that we love about keeping reptiles, we owe to Phil and USARK. Real quick, I just want to go over here. Bournemouth Bugs, thank you for your donation. Looking forward to getting your new t-shirt when you come over to Tinley next March. That's awesome. Obviously you are in the UK. Yeah, Tinley's awesome. I mean, it's such
absolutely.
Yeah, Tinley is like a big reptile party. I love it. Wild Horses comments that reached out to USARK last week about the dwarf retic for the state of Alabama. USARK was quick to respond and gave me some information to go forward on. Support USARK 100%. That's awesome. Let me catch up on some of these. Okay. This is a very good point. The last Kelpie. My fear is that those who get a high from exciting trends are going to get into reptiles for the wrong reasons, and more will be abused over or overbred for that, like Zootopia 2 and the Blue Squams. Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about that. Is the other side of the coin that we're kind of focusing all on the politics and what could politically happen because of this. But yes, they bring up a very good point. Is this going to spark a new interest in reptiles, and is it going to spark a new interest for all the wrong reasons?
So I haven't watched it yet, but Dave, something you said when you were doing your 30-minute review was actually a big relief to me, actually, because you were talking about how this isn't super sensational, and it was a great point. This isn't like Tiger King. The characters aren't as incredible as the Tiger King characters. Right. And you said, if you weren't such a hardcore reptile nerd, which being a nerd's fine, I'm a reptile nerd too.
Oh, I'm a nerd.
That you may not have made it through it, and you may have flipped it off after 10 or 15 minutes. So I don't think this is going to get nearly the numbers of the viewership. We may get a few people doing that kind of thing, but that stuff is all already out there. I mean, there are people with social media that have hundreds of thousands or even millions of followers already. So I don't think that this is going to bring that much new to the table as far as people coming in and buying a reptile just because they saw it because of Monsters of God. I don't see that being a huge thing, but I mean, it's possible you get a few, but it's not going to be giant numbers. Like, you got to realize how many more people are watching some of those movies and how those go crazy. And it's way more than what this documentary is going to get.
Right. Like, did Anaconda sales skyrocket after the Anaconda movies?
Yeah, I'm going to guess no.
I think so. All right. Somebody asked a question back here. Steve Livingston, expound on your question a little bit. What specific question are you talking about there? Dinosaur Roar, thank you for your super chat. Thank you for fighting for our rights. Okay, good. We've kind of covered a couple of the bases, and I think that the overall consensus here is that this is not going to really have the negative impact that we so fear that it's going to have. And I think, again, I'm going to go back to that there is so much, and I don't get where people kind of come up with this. There is so much sky is falling negativity. Is that sound on your end or my end?
I don't hear anything.
I hear something. It's not coming from in here. That sound.
Hang on. Let me kill this.
Oh, I think I know who it is. Hi, sweetheart. Come here. You want to come up? Nori.
Is my stuff okay? I took my earbud out. I didn't even realize I had it in.
Oh, gotcha. I don't know. I was hearing this really weird scraping sound, and I just didn't know if it was on your end or my end. If there was like maybe a snake loose in here. Which, no, that doesn't really happen. Alicia, thank you so much for your super chat, your super sticker.
I think you were asking something before Nori.
Yeah, I saw something shiny, and I can't remember what it was. Do you remember what I was saying?
No, Dave.
Yeah, no.
You weren't full. You weren't through your thought. We've lost it.
Yeah, that happened.
It must be because we're in our late 20s.
I'm saying, when this starts growing in, I lose thoughts mid-sentence, and it screws everything up. Yeah. But I'll just kind of backtrack. So,
people online were talking about how the sky.
Yes. That's exactly what I was saying. So, I don't know where people get this from, and maybe it is for sensationalist purposes, but I have seen so many YouTube videos of people speculating what is going to happen once, Thursday, August 6th happens and this thing premieres. And it's like, why are you commenting on it if you haven't even seen it? You're commenting on, people's fears and people's ignorance of what is going to happen here because you haven't even seen it yet. And I don't know where we kind of get that from as this whole kind of negativity, the sky is falling type of thing. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on. And again, thanks for coming on to really dispel and kind of ground people and talk about, that this might not have like this negative impact, the doomsday that everybody thinks that it's going to have. And even Eric Good, came out and said, I do not want that to happen with this documentary. Yeah, I don't know where that comes from. And, again, I appreciate having you on. I've got you scheduled for another half hour. I mean, if you want to.
We can talk a little bit longer. If there's questions, let me know. Yeah. I'll follow up on what you were saying, and this world far better than I do, the social media world. Mm-hmm. But, you have to have content. So, if someone finds a way to, make some content and get some views, whether it's to sensationalize it or do what you're doing, which I appreciate. That's another way of creating content. So it is what it is. It's today's world and it's social media. So I agree with you. I don't think you have to go that route to get views. Obviously you're getting views and you're not going that route. So
I get this. Yeah, I get a few.
Yeah. More than I do, Dave. So
all right, guys, let's get those super chats in. Again, this is a fundraiser for USARK. It's not so much that it's about this topic. This topic is in, the public's eye right now, and it is, oh, for frick's sake. I just noticed something. It's in the public eye right now, and it's front and center. It's fresh, but, this isn't a one topic that we are doing that is, I guess, the most concerning to us. And so I guess the question is that, yes, this is front and center. Yes, this is fresh. Yes, this is perceived as a threat. But what would you say is, in fact, the biggest threat to the reptile community right now?
Sheesh. I mean, there's certainly some threats. I mean, if people haven't been following USARK, I mean, there's animal rights groups trying to shut down any what I'll call use of an animal.
Right.
Having a pet is a use of an animal because you're benefiting from having your pet. Dave, when Nori comes up to you and wants a pet, you benefit from that. Give you a good feeling to scratch your dog or
Sure.
hold your bearded dragon or whatever it is. And it's literally billions of dollars. I call it the animal rights industry, but formerly the Humane Society of the United States, which is now Humane World for Animals, even the ASPCA, a lot of people familiar with PETA, but they don't realize that there are all these other groups with way more funding than PETA that are trying to literally take away all animal agriculture, all pets, and so that no one gets any benefit or any use from animals. And it's pretty crazy, but those groups have been attacking us for decades already, and it's going to keep coming. And I think one of the biggest things that people can do now is just talk about how you're a responsible reptile owner. The news, Dave, you bring it back to sensationalism. The news talks about a big snake that gets loose. They talk about the free handler who gets bit. They don't talk about the millions of people who are responsible with their animals and not doing that kind of silly stuff because it's boring. But, on social media, you can get online and talk about that stuff. Be like, hey, this is my pet bearded dragon, and just show how cool it is to have a pet bearded dragon rather than the news only talking about, all the sensational people who are doing the wrong things.
Right.
So just represent how responsible you are with your pets.
Right. I know that a lot of people were commenting before this came out that the way to combat this was to flood the internet with pictures of your proper husbandry. And, well, that's great. You should be doing that every day. I don't think that was the most productive way to combat something that nobody really knew what we were combating yet. But yes, I mean, in an everyday situation, show how great your animals are being kept. Show the terrariums that you built in these huge, like right over there, I have my gargoyle geckos in this huge enclosure. I'd love to show that off. But what are some of the things that people can do on an everyday basis to help promote a positive outlook on the reptile world?
Yeah, and that's something that's free to do. So again, people can do that kind of stuff every day. Something, that's beneficial that not a lot of people do. Unfortunately, I want to say something that's really boring, but watch your city's agendas for council meetings. It's boring, but USARK, there's no systems in place. It literally costs almost $50,000 per state, which is funding USARK doesn't have. But to catch legislation at the city level, there's no systems like we have for state and federal. So you can set up, usually you can get an email depending on the city you live in, but cities always post agendas before they have town council meetings or the county level. So either city or county, and you can watch your agendas, because sometimes I would say maybe about 10 to 15% of the local alerts that we put out, it's because someone has caught it in their agenda for their city and sent it to USARK, and then we put out an alert. But you can watch the agendas to see if there's a proposed ban on some type of reptile or other animal in your city. And just go. So again, when you get off with this, you can take 5 or 10 minutes, go to your city's government page. And like I said, most cities of any size over 10,000 probably will have an email where you can get emailed to you an agenda, or at least a notice that the agenda is posted. And then you can kind of monitor your city and make sure nothing sneaks up on you.
Gotcha. And I've always said that, the 3 branches of the federal government, they get all the press, but the most dangerous, not dangerous, but the one who is actually making laws that affect your everyday life is your city council. And nobody knows who these people are. Like, yeah. I could not tell you the name of the mayor in my little city that I live in here. I couldn't tell you a single one of the city council members that are here, but everybody knows all the names of the federal government and our state government. They know their governor, and it's usually those city ordinances that are the most detrimental to us. And I don't think that a lot of people really look at that, because it might be too small or whatever. Everybody's worried about what Trump is doing or whatever, or their governor is doing, or this or that, or whatever. But that's a very good point. Dinosaur Roar, thanks for your super chat. They ask, what can we do as keepers to show new eyes on the hobby how much things have changed for the better? That is a great question.
Yeah, this information's already floating around out there, but just talk about, almost all reptile shows are now, it's captive bred only. You can only sell captive bred only animals. And something else you brought up during your review of the doc was maybe there's not separation, that this stuff happened 50, 60, 70 years ago, and it hasn't been happening for the last 30, 40. And and, just point out that, these are captive bred animals. These aren't, because you still see that misinformation online a lot from people who aren't in the reptile world. They're talking about how animals shouldn't be taken out of the wild. Well, we're not taking corn snakes and leopard geckos out of the wild anymore. They've been captive bred for decades. So
right.
Point that out to people. And I'm not a big social media person, but I think a lot of times reptile people choose to attack someone who posts wrong information, and it kind of makes us look even worse. So if you're going to correct somebody online, don't say, "You're an idiot. My corn snake didn't come from the wild," and then call them a name. Don't do that. Just state the fact and try and be civil about it. And, if it takes a turn for the worse and you want to switch gears, that's fine. But at least don't start out from an area of, you don't know what you're talking about. You need to shut up. Don't start out like that.
Negativity always begets negativity. There is no positive response that's going to come from a person being negative or responding in a negative way. I agree with that. Symbiotic Animal Alliance, thank you for your super chat. Wild Horses, thank you so much. Let me read a couple of these and catch up. This is the boring part, but some people are asking some really good questions, and I want to make sure that I get to them.
While you're looking, I'll fill in some noise. Something else you talked about was
that kind of noise. Okay.
I'll talk. You were talking about how there may be still some illegal smuggling in the U.S. I think it's actually smuggling going out of the U.S. has far surpassed any illegal smuggling that might be coming into the U.S. If you follow what's been happening with the Department of Justice recently, we've incentivized smuggling so much of our U.S. native animals that there are literally people from other countries coming here and setting up shop and smuggling out thousands of wild-caught U.S. animals that are going out of the country. So while we may still, like you said, there may be still some people trying to smuggle stuff in, it's a lot bigger problem on animals going out. And
that's a very good point.
The laws and the bans that we're seeing are incentivizing smugglers. I mean, I read one report that claimed, and this was from an academic in Florida, that claimed some native U.S. turtles are bringing over $100,000 a piece in China. Yeah. And when you make a little animal that, if you know where to go look, pretty easy to catch, and it's worth $100,000, you're going to get all kinds of people coming and setting up shop. And then, the thing that doesn't make sense on my end was we're obviously still getting these turtles poached, but we can't breed them and sell them in the U.S. Because that's illegal, and you can't keep them as pets. I mean, it's crazy that someone doesn't realize what they're doing, and it's not
in Canada as well. Yeah,
serving species.
That is a problem that is so very rarely addressed, and it's not just rare turtles. I mean, it's not just, okay, let's go get a bunch of spotted turtles and bog turtles and wood turtles and ship them. It's the common painted turtles that they are really loving over there. Here in Minnesota, where I walk my dog down the street, there's a pond, and I see 50 of those turtles just sitting out on a log. And if people came here and said, okay, $sign, $sign, it's the passenger pigeon. They are everywhere until they're not.
Right.
And it does worry me. And some of the laws that are set up to prevent that are actually encouraging that.
One of the last busts was just last year in 2025, and he had smuggled, again, out of the country, our wild-caught animals, at least 2,100 animals. That's what they know of. So they know he smuggled out 2,100 animals. And, you bring up a great point. He may be out looking for a certain Gulf Coast box turtle, but if he comes across some other turtles, obviously he's going to poach those.
He's going to grab them.
Right. Yeah. Even if they're not worth, $10,000, if they're worth 100 or 2, that's still worth it to catch them and get them out of here. So it's a problem that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely, it does. Because when I would go to, let's say, Kansas on a herp trip 25 years ago, when I was 4 years old, there were box turtles everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere. I go to Kansas now and I walk around a field, I don't see one. And I happen to believe it's because of problems like that. They're just being overcollected, shipped across seas, and they're doing it in a way that is sometimes going under the radar. And that's because the radar isn't fixed on that problem. They're fixed on, it almost seems like it's fixed on what's going on over there instead of what's going on right here with our native wildlife. And that's a good point. Herp House, thank you so much for your generous donation. I really appreciate it. Much love to our USARK folks. Let me catch up on these here. I don't want to leave anybody behind. Symbiotic Animal Alliance says, educate the public on the means of why we do it. Exactly. Have a core cause of your husbandry. Babysit your town meetings and your local legislation. Absolutely. Take care of your home first. Ashley says, yes. Sorry, I'm backed up, so I can read these a little bit. Don't wait for USARK to do something, even if you are a part of them. Nothing can pass without your consent. Ignoring your local laws, any animal care laws often passes due to ignorance. 100%. 100%. Okay, so hey Forrest, how you doing? Forrest, I'm so sorry. I know that you emailed me. I don't know if I got back to you or not. Maybe I did. Send me another email and follow up with me if you would, please. I'm just sometimes over my head with the 75 channels that I maintain. But he says he interviewed Eric for Responsible Herpiculture Journal. When the masses on Facebook started going nuts, I tried to calm fears on several threads, but came to the conclusion that the masses love the drama. And that's kind of the problem, isn't it? There's an old saying in the press: if it bleeds, it leads, and don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. So we talk about, like fake news and the misinformation spreading machine. That's been there since the beginning of the press. I'll go off on a little tangent about that after. I have a degree in history, and when you study history, you very quickly realize that all the stories from history that we have been told is 100% bullshit. So yeah, anyway. All right, let me let's go. And Phil, please feel free to talk while I do this if you have anything more to add.
Nelson, I've lost it again. It's the late 20s.
I'm saying once you pass 25, it's all downhill until you're 31.
And then what happens?
And then this happens.
You don't know yet. You got 3 years.
Mission morphs. When the government gets an inch, they take a mile. With us being reps, do you all ever combine funds and info with other animal legislator, like for dogs? People breed dogs too. So how long until attack them? That's a good point. USARK used to kind of go hand in hand with PJAC, right?
Yeah, we still work with National Animal Interest Alliance. PJAC has turned into the Pet Advocacy Network. They changed their name. I work with the ZAA, Zoological Association of America, a lot. So yeah, we work with other groups. Actually, before all those groups are a little bit better now, but a few years ago, especially ZAA, I used to send them legislation a lot that didn't affect herpetoculture, but it might affect the zoo world. So I was constantly sending them alerts before they would find it. So yeah, we work with those groups. As far as combining funds, that gets a little iffy. And no, I'm not bashing on ZAA, but ZAA, who's a zoo accreditation group, is always going to look to find an exemption for ZAA. They're not going to come fight for private reptile keepers, even though a lot of them are private reptile keepers, especially Eric, who owns a snake farm now, which hopefully a lot of people are familiar with. Now he's changed the name of it, but the snake farm in New Braunfels, Texas. Eric Traeger, super good dude. He'd fight for us day and night, but he's on the ZAA board, and again, ZAA is going to do their thing. So it's hard to get those groups to align. And for those who aren't familiar, who think reptile people are getting attacked, dog people are getting attacked way worse than we are. I mean, it's crazy how much they're trying to close down any dog breeding. It's not just cells and pet shops, but it's all dog breeding. They're trying to ban certain breeds, especially French bulldogs. These animal rights groups are trying to shut down all of it. It's if you're farming chickens, it doesn't matter what animal you have, there's a group trying to shut it down.
Well, and the danger is that they position themselves as, we're saving cute little kitties and puppies, so give us all your money. And people fall for that. And these are the people that want to take your puppy and kitty away.
It is crazy. I'll give you one example, because I just gave the talk at IHS a week ago. The ASPCA, which a lot of people are familiar with, they see these commercials on TV. give us your money. They have this new campaign saying we need 3,000 people to send money now to save dogs and cats.
Yeah.
So point one is ASPCA only runs one shelter, and that's in New York City. Every other state or local SPCA is totally separate. The ASPCA has $640 million in the bank right now. So they have $640 million that they could be using to feed all these dogs. $640 million in assets currently. It's probably higher than that now. That was, from a few months, probably last year's numbers. But anyway, $640 million that they could be using to feed these dogs and cats. But they're putting out these ads and paying for these ads that say, we need 3,000 new people to sign up today to feed these dogs and cats. We're not going to spend our $640 million to do it, but we want you to send us more money so that we can. And that's one example of 100+ organizations that are doing that exact same thing. A lot of these animal or enviro groups, they have tens of millions of dollars socked away. There's one at the international level has $1.3 billion in the bank. Claims they're doing wildlife conservation, but they're not buying habitat like you were talking about earlier. Imagine if they had been buying habitat with all those millions of dollars they were bringing in. Instead, they're literally sitting on $1.3 billion in the bank. I mean, it's madness. But we're the bad people for profiting off of animals. They're profiting more than anyone who has ever worked with animals.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
And they got all that money through false pretenses.
Right. To help us save animals, but
right.
To put the money in the bank.
Right. Biggest scam. Biggest scam. Every time I go to McDonald's, they say, would you like to donate to the Ronald McDonald House? And I'm like, you are one of the richest corporations in the world. What do you need my 9 cents for? Yeah. They all do it. Sonia came up with a really good point here. Back to the turtle and exportation of our native wildlife. A lot of that is not for pets. A lot of that is for medicinal purposes and superstition that they have that, I don't even know. The gallbladder of a soft-shelled turtle is going to cure their impotency or whatever it is.
You know that's one of the reasons, traditional medicine. Yep.
Yeah, right. That was a very good point. Let me catch up here. Okay. Okay, who is this guy? Hang on a second. I may need to ban him or somebody here.
Yes, let's ban somebody.
Okay. And that guy is gone. Okay, so let's continue on. Symbiotic Animal Alliance says that we have vet clinics like my own clinic who are trying to ban tests to ensure a female is healthy enough to breed. They have so many more rules for the dog and cat world, and it just gets worse. True. Let's see here. Yeah, Adam Wiggins. Fiji banded iguana gallbladders cured his shortness. It didn't work, buddy. Oh, I love you, Adam. You know that. Okay, so Symbiotic Animal Alliance, thank you so much for your super chat. They say I was against animal foundations because of the banking cash issue. It's in looking closer and prying, I found USARK is legitimate, and that's why I fund any more outside my own creature rescues.
Wow, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Doing that research, again, you see those commercials on TV and you just think, oh, this is legitimate. I'm saving puppies. Donate to your local shelter and even check them out before you give it to them. But yeah, always donate locally.
Right. Absolutely. I want to go back real quick while I have you here. The Humane Society of the United States.
Yep.
They were the biggest bullshit artists out there. What happened to them?
So they changed their name, and I said the name earlier. Humane World for Animals is what they changed their name to. And I'm not sure why they did it, because their revenues kept going up every year. My theory was that they were doing it because now they're going to talk more about how they're saving polar bears and things like that, rather than mainly focusing on how they're saving dogs and cats. So I think they're going to expand on the animals that they're saving. But I'm not sure exactly why they changed their name.
Okay.
But they're still around. They just changed their name.
I know one of the criticisms was that people thought that they were giving to their local humane society.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah. So
That's how they got hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yep. ASPCA has one shelter that I mentioned in New York City. Humane Society United States never ran any local dog and cat shelters. So every local Humane Society is totally separate funded. I want to say off the top of my head at 1.3% of donations to HSUS were giving as grants to local Humane Societies, but they weren't totally funding any of them. And that number may be high. Honestly, it may have been 1.5%, but it was a small little margin of the money that actually went to local dog and cat shelters.
And I mean, that borderlines on fraud.
It's so...
Or doesn't even not borderline.
We could talk about that for hours. There have been, I remember one time, all 13 Midwestern states called their attorney generals at all 13 Midwestern states called for an investigation on HSUS. There were members of Congress who requested that IRS investigate HSUS. So whatever kind of political connections HSUS has that allows them to keep their 501c3 nonprofit statuses, they've got some political strings somewhere. There was a whole big scandal with Lois Lerner, who was running the IRS at the time and didn't go through with an investigation on HSUS. But yeah, you can find this stuff all over the internet. It's not some conspiracy theory that I'm making up, but there's been a lot of pretty major effort from some big name people, especially in the political world, and it's just never gone anywhere. They just keep functioning because they're only allowed to be able to spend a small portion of that on lobbying, and obviously they're doing tons of lobbying with those donation dollars. So it's crazy that they're allowed to get away with it.
Yeah, but a small portion of $600 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a lot, but it's more.
A lot of politicians.
It's over. Well, oh yeah, we'll go with that. That's yeah.
Now, one of the questions that I want to talk about the function of USARK and the function that you do. Yes, I mean, we can all sit here and critique politicians for not reading the laws or reading the bills, that are before the House and the Senate. And that is a big critique, I mean, that's part of your job. But at the same respect, it's so easy for us in the private sector to point the finger at our politicians and say, look what you're doing wrong. Look what you're not working for, but whatever it is that we say. And there's a saying that you catch more flies with honey than you do with dog shit. So when you are specifically working with some of these lawmakers, what do you see that's the ones that actually really want to help, the ones that really see USARK as a legitimate organization that is helping people maintain their rights? When you're dealing with these people, granted, I'm sure you've met a couple of them that are like, I don't have time for you, there's the door, but I'm sure you've met a lot of these politicians that actually care. Can you, when you're dealing with politicians, how is it that, you go about, working with them on that kind of level?
So absolutely, that's a great point. And yeah, obviously I was critiquing them, criticizing, however you want to say it. It was also stating facts that they even admit themselves that they don't read through all those laws. But that's why it's so important. If USARK puts out an alert, and that's why we have a sample email and we have contact information, because generally the way you get a politician's attention is constituents, which are the people out there who are the voters, or money. And USARK certainly doesn't have the money to throw into their campaigns. But if I go in and talk to a legislator, I can't just go in as USARK and say, this stuff is happening. You have 1,000 people that are affected by this. Unless there have been a certain number of people to meet a threshold who have emailed them, they're not going to pay attention to me. When they listen to me is when people have used the USARK alert and sent the email, even though you may be like, oh, it's one email, it's not going to matter. But when you get hundreds of them, then it matters. So you got to be one of those hundreds of people. And then they'll listen to me when I go in the door, because I've literally have them say, yeah, my staff person has told me we've gotten hundreds of emails about this. So then you have their undivided attention. When I go in blindly, because no one's completed our alert, then they're going to blow me off. So that's why the USARK alerts are so important. And that's why we make it easy. We make it digestible. This is what's happening as briefly as possible. This is what you do. Literally, most of our alerts you can do in a minute if you know how to copy paste.
Gotcha.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I just, I guess that we are being led to believe that all politicians are these boogeymen that are doing things for themselves, doing things for special interest groups, ignoring what the people want once they're elected, promising us everything. Okay, I got elected, screw you all. Not all politicians are like that, obviously. You know, I think that a lot of politicians get into politics because they have nothing else to do. My pillow guy. But I think that there are a lot of politicians that set out to say, I want to help the people. I want to help my community. And then, of course, they get elected, and then they get caught up in this quagmire of how, you know, the system is you know, just kind of full of, you know, I don't even like, just this sticky kind of world that they now need to navigate. And by the time that they navigate that, you know, they aren't doing things for the people anymore because they're trying to, you know, get support for something that they want to do. And so I guess what I was asking is that how does USARK work with, you know, the people that the politicians that really want to help? And then how do you, when you need to go in and say, okay, there's this law right here that we need to fight, you know, how does USARK begin to go in and talk to lawmakers that have either proposed that bill or championed that bill or support that bill? How do you go in, and what is your job? What is your role? And how do you treat those people that wouldn't give you the time of day in order to squash these laws?
Yeah. So a lot of politicians are obviously doing a lot of work. Some of them are super busy, and there's reasons they can't read through all the laws. But when USARK goes in, because of all the money, a lot of times they've already heard from the animal rights side of things. I have to go in and I have to tell them the truth. And I say the truth, not because it's our side, but because unfortunately I have a certain set of morals that don't allow me to lie like the animal rights groups do. I'll give you an example when I'm done. But, you know, a lot of times they've heard from the animal rights groups, and I'll go in and set it straight, and that gets their attention too. Because again, they've only heard from this animal rights person who probably told them some lies. And then I come in and explain how big the reptile industry is, how the animals are captive bred instead of wild caught, and all this stuff to correct the misinformation they've been given. And then a lot of times I'll just say, wow, I can't believe this other person told me this, and it was total lies. So a lot of times that's how we win a legislator over, because we give them correct information. And one example I remember when I was working on a dog issue, a city council person literally believed an animal rights person who came in and told them that people breed their female dogs 5 times a year. So it's biologically impossible. It absolutely cannot happen. But this city council person regurgitated this information at a city town council hearing because an animal rights person had gotten in their ear and told them that. And that was all they heard, was that misinformation. So that's just an example of, you know, some misinformation being given to a legislator. It's crazy what they say.
And, you know, like, I try to put myself in these in their shoes and be like, okay, let's say somebody came up to me and said, I don't know, something about this is a problem on something that I have absolutely no idea was even a problem. How much time am I going to take to look into that when there's so many other things going on, so many other things that need my attention, that I'm not going to really look at, okay, so Johnny wants to keep a corn snake in Minnesota. Is that worth my time? And do they kind of just throw in the towel at that point, or do you actually get them to, how do you get them to care, is I guess what the question is.
Yeah, again, a lot of that is what we call grassroots. So if people email them and say this is an issue, then they're going to want to get the correct information. And I mean, we see it all the time. I mean, how many times have we seen people online talking about cottonmouths in states where there aren't cottonmouths because their dad told them that the Nerodia water snake, non-venomous species, was a cottonmouth, so they believe it's cottonmouth. But, you know, on your side, even you and especially politicians, you know, if someone told you something that maybe didn't sound quite right, before you get on and do a podcast about it, you're probably going to research and see if that was actually correct or not. So it drives me nuts that a politician is just going to take something and then say that in a public space without learning about it. I mean, it's crazy that they do that. But like you said, some are just going to do that. They, for some reason, blindly trust someone who came in and told them something. And sometimes it's because that blind trust comes with a card that says Humane Society of the United States or PETA. whatever the card says. They're like, oh, this is an expert. I'll believe this person all day long, and they could be lying to you.
Cool. Gotcha. All right, so I'm going to keep you on for a couple more minutes. Get those super chats in, everybody. I'm going to go back and read some of the comments. If you have any questions for Phil, comment right here. Let me go back and catch up. Dave, if I see a garter snake outside, can I keep it? It all depends on where you live and what your local city ordinances, what your city laws are. Can you collect wild animals in the wild where you are and keep them? Sometimes yes, but you need a license, like a fishing license or a hunting license, in order to do that, depending on where you are. But let me go back in. Any questions for Phil? See, this is when Bob Bledsoe does his live, he has an Amy reading all this and doing I need an Amy.
You need an Amy.
I need an Amy.
Maybe in your 30s, you'll be able to.
When I get to be a big boy, I can get an Amy. Can you tell Phil I want to breed chinchillas, if that I can do in Beloit, Wisconsin?
I'm not up on my chinchilla laws, but almost everywhere it's legal to breed chinchillas. But yeah, you'd have to check probably state laws to make sure.
Check your local ordinances. All right, Phil, any last... Oh, wait, Adam, you're on in 5 minutes, and we're going to address that comment. Nori can read the comments for me, and she would. Any last thoughts, ideas, things you want people to know?
No, just appreciate USARK. If you're not sure, if you're thinking about becoming a member and you're not, just go to usark.org, and we do have a free email newsletter. So even if you're not a paid member yet, which hopefully you will be, because we need money to do this. But just go, and there's literally you type in your email address, you hit submit, and you'll start getting our newsletters. So you'll at least be able to keep track of all the alerts and everything like that. And that's something else people can do that's free. And Dave, again, you know this way better than I do, but especially since Facebook started monetizing posts, just because you like the USARK Facebook page or Instagram doesn't mean that you're going to see it in your feed. So you'll miss the alerts on social media. Whereas if you sign up for our email newsletter, it's at least going to go to your inbox. You can take a quick click on it and see what's going on. Whereas you might miss it if you're just following us on social media, because our social media page, so Facebook specifically, is like 130,000 followers, I think. Our subscribership to our newsletter is not nearly that. So obviously all those people who like us on Facebook don't get our newsletters.
And when you sign up for the newsletter, that's showing strength in numbers.
Yep. We can talk about, that's a good legislative talking point. Thank you, Dave. So we can talk about, legislators want to hear that number. They want to know how many members you have. Right. They want to know how big your subscribership is, both on social media and email newsletters. So yeah. So thanks, Dave. Yeah, that's an important number.
Okay, perfect. So sign up for the newsletter. Perhaps Boas, I'm going to become a member right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I going to the Wisconsin State Fair? No, I'm not. I just hit the Ohio State Fair to do that for my food channel. What's coming up? Oh,
Minnesota.
Minnesota, of course. I'm like at the Minnesota State Fair almost. Like I go there 3 or 4 times a year. I just love that fair. But next week, this week, holy crap, Iowa State Fair for the first time. So I'll do a food video there. That was kind of getting off a topic. But Symbiotic Animal Alliance says, we don't only appreciate USARK, we appreciate you, Phil.
Thank you.
If more of you was out there in the world, these situations wouldn't be a topic. Thank you for everything, boss. I couldn't agree more. And honestly, it boils my blood when I hear people like, when I made the Facebook post and saying that I'm going live here today, some asshat from Wisconsin commented, oh yeah, you're just doing this to raise money and put it in your pocket, and Phil's going to pocket all the money, and USARK is only it boils my blood, because that is such blatant willful ignorance as to what you and USARK does. These special interest groups have more money to spend on lawyers than USARK gets in donations in 5 years. If that is correct, maybe more than that, but we are, it's so cliched, but this is a David and Goliath situation. And it's because of your work and it's because of what you do that we are able to all be right here to talk about this, and go to Tinley and go to Pomona and go to an All-American Reptile and Plant Expo and keep these wonderful animals and love them and care for them. All of that would be gone long ago if it wasn't for not only USARK, but you, Phil.
Yeah, thanks. And I know people get upset. Unfortunately, we don't stop everything, but I started 2013. I mean, we'll call it win record is over 90%. I mean, I don't know if you're if you're a baseball player hitting 900, you're a pretty good baseball player.
That's right.
You can't, I mean, with the funding that we have, I mean, just to win that federal lawsuit. So we filed that lawsuit in November after I became president, I think in March of 2013, and we filed that federal lawsuit the same year I became president. We were bringing in about $350,000 a year. $100,000 of that off the top was going to our federal lobbyist. I wasn't making that much money. So, I mean, that's over half of the funding we were getting right there. We had one attorney. So this is going back 15 years ago, but he was billing us at $940 an hour. People don't realize how much attorneys cost. When people say, I'll sue you, those are people who have never sued.
People have no idea what it costs. Yeah.
In today's world, finding an attorney for less than about $400 an hour is hard to find. I know we were working on a case and we had an attorney $1,400 an hour. This attorney wanted to bill us $1,400 an hour. So I don't care if you think $600,000. So that's about average over the last 13 years, what USARK has brought in. If you think $600,000 sounds like a lot of money, if you're paying an attorney $1,400 an hour, that $600,000 doesn't go very far. I mean, it's crazy when people think, oh yeah. And sorry, I got to say this too. I've heard these stories about how I'm driving around in 2 different BMWs and a Mercedes. And, my 2012 Kia doesn't agree with what driving around. So, I mean, people can say that stuff because maybe they're upset because, it's one of the battles we lost. But and I'm not bragging on myself because there's a whole lot of other people involved, but what USARK has been able to do, especially that federal lawsuit with that kind of funding, I mean, it was just crazy.
Well, one of the things that I want to close out here before I bring our guest on, who looks suspiciously interesting. What USARK does, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not just for the United States. It's almost a global thing because what legislation happens here in the United States, places like Canada, Australia, places in Europe, they're saying, look what the Americans just did, let's do that. And so if these laws are passed here in the United States, chances are it's going to have a ripple effect throughout the reptile world, throughout the entire world. So it's so important, seriously, guys, to wherever you are, not just in the United States, but wherever you are in the world, to support USARK. And I don't think that point is really thought of a lot. And I don't think that thought enters into a lot of people's consciousness. But yes, even today, other countries will still look at the United States and say, okay, look what they did, let's do that as well. And so by you being out there squashing, these anti-American reptile laws, let's face it, we have certain freedoms here. Is it written in the Constitution and Bill of Rights that we can keep reptiles? No, but it should be. But yeah, I mean, this does have a ripple effect throughout the entire world if it happens here. So I just wanted to make that clear. Phil, any last things?
No, I think you wrapped it up there nicely, Dave.
Excellent. So great seeing you. I will see you.
Daytona? You going to Daytona? Probably
no,
not.
Not to Daytona.
I guess Tinley.
I love Daytona, but my God, I don't like being in Florida.
Daytona in August? Yeah.
Sometimes I don't like being in Minnesota in August.
Yeah.
I think it'll probably be Tinley. It'll probably be
here before you know it.
Yeah. It will. All right, Phil, thanks so much.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everybody.
All right, see you later. All right, so let us bring on This guy. Who's me?
Hi, I'm Dave Kaufman. Rattle on.
Well, good having you on.
I don't know how you wear this hair, man. Holy cow.
Is that a towel?
It was a towel, yeah. I didn't have a wig at my disposal, so I used a towel.
I gotcha. Dappy already says, this guy.
Dave, how are you? How's the stream going?
Good. It's flying right on by. We need more supercuts. Well, you just had a supercut. We need more supercuts in because I really do want to raise a lot of money for USARK with this. But I also wanted to bring you on as a fellow influencer and talk about your reaction to what we've been talking about.
Yeah, well, I think we kind of agree. I thought that it was going to be mostly like crazy reptile people, and if you watch the intro to the show, no spoilers. But if you watch the intro to the show,
spoilers.
Okay, well, the intro of the show, they had like the craziest people. Oh, this lizard sleeps in my bed, and like this. Oh, are you sad because you got like this crazy thing where they're like talking like puppets, and then you get in the show, and it's just basically a history lesson.
Right. That's exactly what I took away from this. Is that Eric Good really did a great job at talking about the nefarious history of what we now all, let's face it, benefit from. I mean, look at the enclosures behind you. I mean, most of those reptiles in those enclosures behind you, you had to personally smuggle in from other places around the world. And
I haven't been able to walk right since, but they are here now, which is great. You know,
right. But no, the history is something that I really, and you know, we're going to have Tom on in a minute. And one of the things that I love about Tom is that, one of the things that I love about Tom is that whenever you go visit him, you know it's going to be an all-day thing. If you want to go over and see his animals for an hour, it's not going to happen because he's going to sit you at the kitchen table and he's going to tell you stories that literally you just drop your jaw at. I mean, he is such a great storyteller. Well,
I think a lot of those guys are like that too. And Tom is like the main guy in the documentary that we're watching, but I think I'm kind of new to reptiles in comparison to a lot of guys. Like you've been doing it for a lot longer than me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you meet guys, and like I've met guys who knew Tom back in the 60s, and I got to sit at a table with these people and they would tell you stories, and it's super interesting. And then you hear Tom tell the same story, and some guys it's the same story, some guys it's a completely different story. So it's really interesting. And guys like Tom, who I trust a lot, and I really like Tom, it's you assume that you're getting the right story from him, but then you can get a different story from somebody completely different. And like you were saying earlier with history, when you learn about history in school, sometimes it's a completely different thing than what's written in the textbook. So yeah, and it's cool that you have like both. Obviously, like that Hank dude seems like a little bit of a weasel, but it's interesting to have two sides of each story and to have it come together into one, and you actually get to watch it all together rather than having it pieced out, reading this Reddit thread here from 2008, and then you read this forum thing here. It's all together. So, and I think that you're right. I think that this isn't going to be as big of a thing as Tiger King because it's not cute kittens, but I think that the main difference is keeping tigers is crazy. Objectively, keeping a tiger as a pet is a crazy thing to do. Whereas, right?
Okay, yep, my big cat was coming towards.
Oh, okay. So I didn't mean to offend your tiger.
Yeah.
But keeping a banded iguana is not a crazy thing. The crazy thing is how they got.
It is in this country.
Right. Well, yeah. For you, what I mean is like that animal to own, it's not going to bite you, scratch you, kill you. It's not venomous. It's not crazy. Where a tiger can kill you. So like keeping a tiger is a crazy thing to do. Keeping a banded iguana is not a crazy thing to do. The crazy part is the legality of it and how they got here in the first place. Where with tigers, the crazy thing is the owning, and how they got here like isn't as crazy of a thing, and it's just prolifically bred, and you can just buy one for $2,000 in Texas. So I think that's like the main difference in the two shows so far, being that there's only been one episode.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So one of the reasons why I was excited to have you on, this is the first time that I've seen you. outside of across a table at Denny's in some. I don't even know the name of the town we were in.
Yeah, I don't remember either. It was somewhere.
I don't even remember the state.
It was Pennsylvania, but it was somewhere close to Pittsburgh. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell the backstory. It turns out we were just at Retic Fest, and I go to check into my hotel, and I'm in the lobby, and I turn around, and and Adam's standing behind me, and I'm like, oh, I was just going to go to dinner, and so we tried to go to the dinner at the. Or try to go to the restaurant at the hotel, but you had Elfie with you, and well, you can share what happened.
Yeah, so there was a restaurant, and it's billed as a restaurant, and then we walk in there, and the guy turns around immediately. He's like, "He's not 21." Talking about my not even 2-year-old son that I'm holding. Like, yeah, clearly, like, I want a cheeseburger. Is that okay? And he's like, "No, you can't be. You have to be 21 in a hotel restaurant."
Right?
Yeah. So we went to Denny's instead.
So we went to Denny's, and
Denny's was good.
Yeah, Denny's was good. I was actually kind of surprised. That has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking in this podcast. But so you being from, are you okay there?
Yeah, I just need my hair to. It's very warm down here, so I just need my hair to wipe off my face. Yeah, we're good.
This is why I don't do live streams in my reptile room.
Yeah, well, I don't normally in the summer either, but here I am, so it's all good. I'm a lizard. I like this. This is fine. It's going to be snowing in like 8 weeks, so
I was just going to say, I'm not a lizard. I don't like the heat. I'm too Minnesotan for that. But how is Canada? Obviously has different laws than we do. They're a different country. How do you think that this show is going to impact reptile keeping in Canada?
I don't think it's going to be. It depends on what stories are told in the later episodes. Like if they really dramatize Tyler Nolan's thing about losing his finger. I mean, most places already have bans on certain things like venomous snakes, for example.
Sure.
But like, for example, like in the city that I live in, our reptile law, our bylaw until 2013 was no venomous snakes. That's it. You can have any other species of reptile. That's it. 2013, there was an incident in New Brunswick, Canada, so like the East Coast, where 2 little boys were supposedly killed by a big African rock python. That same year, we had sweeping bans in my province, in each city and municipality, based on that one thing. So if this documentary depicts something like that, like an alligator biting somebody and they die, or a certain animal, someone swallowed a dart frog, let's say, and they died of the poison, not the poisoning from the dart frog, but the fact that they swallowed an amphibian. Like, we are very rushed to make laws about basically everything, where certain municipality, and it's usually municipalities, not federal, but it just depends what they show. Like if everything is like episode 1, I don't think there'll be any impact whatsoever. But if they start dramatizing, well, this one person died because of this or got severely injured because of this, that's when they latch onto those things, and all of a sudden that thing is illegal.
So from the previews, next week they're going to equate drug smuggling with reptile smuggling, and I don't know how that's going to go.
Well, I hope that they make it clear the timelines, because what I noticed about the first one is the timelines are kind of like skewed. Like, so I read a little bit more before and a little bit after, and like, for example, when Tom was arrested right at the very end of that episode, you think it's in the 60s. That was way after the 60s. Like,
that was like in the
95.
80s. Okay.
Yeah, or unless there was 2. Like, I honestly, like, I know 95 was one of the years.
He told me, I don't remember.
Yeah, so so the timeline's skewed. So if they do the same sort of thing with the drug smuggling, well, then we might be in trouble, because if they don't tell you that the Mario thing was in the 80s and you think it was in 2008, well, then they think that stuff is still going on. And like what you and Phil were talking about, where they don't separate that this was something that happened before my parents were born, then in yours too, obviously being 28 years old, then, it's just one of those things where like if they have to distinguish when that actually happened. And if they do, and it's like the story of back in the 80s, that's one thing. But if they make it seem like this is happening up until today, then I think there'd be a completely different reaction.
Yeah, I agree. And that's one of the things that I was talking to about Phil, is that I don't want people to go away from this documentary, and I don't think they will. I mean, Eric Good does a very good job at saying when this happened. Part of the way that I really appreciate how he is as a filmmaker is that he uses that period B-roll to kind of create this the sense of timing and when in the historical timeline the story is in. Yeah, so my viewpoint on this is that this is not going to negatively affect us. This is not going to negatively affect us in this country, your country, countries in Europe. I don't think that it is. And I think that, and I want to ask you about this, but did you feel like if you weren't a reptile person, you would have clicked off of this?
So personally, no, because I like the history of obscure things. But if I wasn't that person, like for example, I watched a documentary about sailboat racing. I've never been on a sailboat. Like to me, that was fascinating. So it was like the history of this niche thing. But if I wasn't that type of nerd person who liked the history of things, then yeah, probably. Because, but I think the drug smuggling thing, I think there'll be more views on episode 2 than episode 1 because I mean, there's a million documentaries on Netflix, and that's one of the things I like true crime because it's like something that'll never be part of my life. So,
Sure.
in drug smuggling to me, like drug kingpins, that's so interesting to me because that's so not my world at all. That's something I would never be involved in. So you
Get
can
it.
kind of like live vicariously through these people that are doing these crazy illegal things, whereas like I would never do something like that. So it doesn't cross. Again, yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right? Besides, like all the stuff that I smuggled in from wherever. But I gotta be careful. Some people might think I'm being serious. I didn't smuggle them; Dave did. So, but the main thing is, I think that the reach is going to be so much less than a Tiger King. Like for example, I don't know if you watched the Rogan episode when Eric Good was on.
I did not actually.
So I listened to the whole thing yesterday as I was doing reptile work, and it was really cool, it was really interesting, but I noticed a couple things. First thing, it got no views, basically. It had 600,000 views. I checked right before I came on here, whereas Forrest Galante was on 2 episodes before that and got 3 million views. So it has
Really?
almost, yes, so way less views, so which means to me, like that's the director of Tiger King, and Tiger King was the biggest thing in 2020 when it came out. So if that isn't getting any views, well, and it's on HBO, not Netflix. That's the other thing. But then,
we haven't even made that point yet. But wasn't
Right.
Chip Crazy on HBO?
I don't know, and I didn't watch it because it wasn't on Netflix.
I don't know.
I literally, so in
I pay
Canada,
for them all, and I have no idea what network I'm watching. I just watch the shows.
yeah. So I literally got, it's called Crave TV in Canada. It's our version of HBO. I paid for it just so I could watch this. Otherwise, if I wasn't invested already, I never would have seen it because it's not on something that I already pay for. But the other thing I noticed with the Rogan episode is Rogan has very negative things to say about reptile keepers. And and I listen to Rogan a lot. I've listened to 1,000 episodes probably. And his big thing is like people who like reptiles are weird. People who like crocodile, he'll even like pick like a snake person, like it's a monster that you feed. That's what he calls it, right? And they don't eat you because they're not big enough. First of all, I think you're describing a cat, not a lizard or a snake. But the way that Rogan talks about it, and Rogan's not like an idiot. He talks to all these guys, like Forrest Galante talked to like last week, right? He had Rosalie on like 2 months ago. So if he thinks that way, is that a reflection on the way that the rest of the world who's not invested in reptiles also thinks?
Good point. Good point. I think that a lot of people didn't watch this because there's icky snakes in it. And I really wonder if that's going to hurt this show from a filmmaker standpoint. But you watch tigers, they're mammals, right? They're intriguing. They don't have the creep factor that reptiles unfortunately have. And so when people see snakes and lizards, I really wonder how this show is going to fare compared to his previous 2 documentaries. And I don't know. We could speculate all day, but I don't think it's going to do as well as Chimp Crazy and Tiger King did.
I don't think it will at all. And I think that like that's actually one of the things that Rogan said in the episode. He's like, I get it. Tigers are mammals. I get primates. They're cute. They can bond with you. Where most people think, and his explanation was like a lizard or a snake, they're just looking at you and they want to either eat you, or run away from you. And like, there's more than that, especially like when we get into smart things like tree monitors and stuff like that. Like they're literally watching me right now. I look around, they're literally watching what I'm doing. But that's his perspective. And I don't think he's stupid for that. I just think that he doesn't understand. And my guess is that the majority of people would probably think something very similar to that.
Right. The other side of the coin is that it's on HBO.
Mhm.
It's not on Netflix.
Right.
I would say that, I mean, I don't have the exact numbers, but I would say more people are subscribed to Netflix than HBO.
Way more.
Right. So does
Way
this have
more.
the reach that Tiger King would have had?
Never. It would never would. Like,
Right.
if let's compare it to YouTube channels, okay? So Netflix, that's Emily and Ed. That's Snake Discovery. Everybody has Netflix. Everybody watches Snake Discovery. Whereas this is like a Wiccans Wicked Reptiles. Like 10% of people, I'll bet you it's less. I'll bet you less than 10% of people who are subscribed to Netflix are also subscribed to HBO. And HBO has less than 10% of the viewership of Netflix. Netflix is the king daddy. Like,
Yeah,
if you're a comedian, remember back in the day, it was the HBO special. Like, that was the gold standard.
Yeah.
That's not a thing anymore. Netflix, you want a Netflix special now, right? If you're on HBO, it's because you weren't good enough to be on Netflix. And I don't know why HBO,
Or you
like,
wanted to swear in your documentary.
right, exactly. Like, and I don't know why this was picked up by HBO and not Netflix, but I think maybe it was that they thought that there wouldn't be as much interest. It could be something as simple as that. I don't know. I'm just speculating, of course.
I don't know. And if Emily and Ed are Netflix,
Mhm.
you're HBO. What does that make me? Tubi?
You're a Showcase, which is a now defunct Canadian brand that Trailer Park Boys was once featured on. So
I see.
yes.
So it still gets views, though, right?
Still gets lots of views, yeah, but it's mostly people who live in trailer parks, which is fine because that's actually what I was watching last night. But anyway, the point is here, I think that it's way, way, way less people are going to watch this, and not only that, but less people are going to be interested anyway. And I think that the trailer for it was really interesting. And even if I wasn't a reptile person, I probably would watch it because of the trailer. Like, if you watch what the trailer was, it's guys talking about smuggling drugs right away. It's Tyler Nolan walking away with an assault rifle in his hand.
Yeah, I saw that.
Right? Tyler Nolan literally laying in bed with like a model or whatever, right? Like in a Scarface bed. Like, it's
actually, yeah.
right. So yeah, like, so it's what it is it's interesting to the average person who likes the true crime thing. And I think that's what they kind of build it as. And I actually like the way they did it. They build it as crazy reptile people all the way up through the trailer and all the marketing into the beginning of the first episode. And then when you watch the meat and potatoes of the first episode, it's really not. It's here's Hank Molt, here's who he was, here's Tom Crutchfield, and then here's some like supporting cast. And really the only disgusting thing in that entire episode was Ed Allen burying all those animals alive. Like, that was really the only disgusting thing.
So difficult to watch.
Well, especially when they show, like, first of all, it could be goldfish. Like, it doesn't, like, it's all bad if it's a living creature. However, there is something to be said. Like, the first thing they show is a croc monitor, and then there's tree monitors right beside it, and there's a Boland's python, and like, though, that's crazy. Like, that's insane that you would just throw them in a ditch and then bear. Like, I don't know. To me, I can't imagine that as I sit in a room filled with tree monitors. But also, I can't imagine doing that to like a squirrel or a goldfish or like anything that would be not worth a lot of money anyway.
They buried them. This guy buried them alive.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, that was the most horrific thing to watch out of the entire episode.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because I don't like, the only people that I really got their take were reptile people. So it's kind of like they're corrupt. They have a way of thinking. There's a chant or it's like a short form channel on Instagram, whatever. It's called The Doc Girl. And all she does is talk about documentaries and she gets her take. And then I've watched a lot of them because of her reviews. Her review I watched like an hour before I came on here, and her review was that this is horrific, way worse than Tiger King. These she didn't understand the smuggling aspect, and she thought the smuggling of these animals was super cruel to the animal, which, in comparison to a primate in captivity, I would argue is not even close. I think a primate in captivity is way worse than shipping a Boland's python across the world, and then I think it's way worse. So I think that people equate the smuggling aspect of it as cruelty, which in a way, like maybe like you're putting a tiny little suitcase and then you're brought across the world. Okay. but I think that's not even close to as bad as keeping a tiger or especially a chimpanzee in captivity.
I agree. Let's go back to these comments here for a second. Bo XXXXX says he's seen I've seen the second episode, and it talks about Mario and Ray using and selling drugs and smuggling together a bit, but doesn't make it seem like they are deeper links. Okay, that's interesting. Let's see here. Hello from Hungary. Hello. Okay, Bo also says a lot of people I know aren't reptile people are excited about the show. Okay.
I wonder excited in what way, and I wonder what their take would
Yeah,
be.
that's a good point. Hang on a second. Let me read real quick. Talk amongst yourselves.
Why doesn't Nori read you the comments?
Because Nori is being taken care of right now so that she doesn't come at me, because it's an hour past the time that we usually go to the dog park right now. And she would be right here going, Daddy, it's time.
I've heard her voice, so I know that she has a good reading voice.
You watched her, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going to spend the rest of the day after this at the outside. Okay, hang on a second. I just want to make sure that I get to everybody here that took the time to comment, or as much as I can. Wild Horses says, I'm not a fan of monkeys, so I am not going to watch the Monkeys show. So unless you have an interest, you would watch it. That's kind of what we agreed that. Well, I think that if you're not reptile people, I mean, again, I've said this before. I think Eric Good, this is a passion project of his, because he's a reptile guy. I didn't even know HBO had a streaming platform. Let's see here. Dave is a crunchy roll. I'm a crunchy roll. I like crunchy rolls. Okay. I watch Crunchyroll all the time. I don't know what Crunchyroll is. I
think that's a streaming platform.
Is that maybe I'm a little too old to know what a Crunchyroll is?
I think Crunchyroll is isn't that a streaming platform? I'm pretty sure.
Could be.
Maybe I'm too old for it too. I know that you're 29. I'm only 28, so right. I don't know exactly, but might be a little bit past me.
Bo also makes a good point. HBO does not have Monsters of God in the front page of the app. You have to search for it. I don't know if that's.
It is true.
It is true. Okay.
Yeah, because I
guess I didn't notice.
I watched it on Thursday, and then I watched it again today because I knew I was coming on here. I wanted to watch it again. Also, watching things with a 2-year-old is kind of difficult, so I wanted to make sure anything that I missed, I got. And I noticed that I had to type it in all the way, Monster, all the way for it to show up.
Oh,
and then I saw somebody in a different comment section. I think it was your comment section for when you promoted this. They said that it was number 6, or sorry, it went from number 3 to number 6 to number 8. So literally Rick and Morty are beating Monsters of God.
Wait a minute. It went from, say that again. I was reading and didn't pay attention. 3
to 6 to 8 of most watched this week on HBO. Yeah. So, I mean, it's you think something like this, especially with such a big name, like the creators of Tiger King, you think that would be something so big, because Tiger King was the biggest thing. So I thought for sure this was going to blow up just because it was Eric Good, but I guess I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, as somebody who has made multiple films, there's a saying that you are only as good as your last film, right? And there are a lot of filmmakers out there who shot out of the cannon. Who was that behind you?
Oh, it was a Thrill Dragon. He's just going crazy.
Oh, I thought you put Trish in one of the cages. But yeah, some filmmakers get a shot out of the cannon and then try to recreate that magic. And oftentimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. And careers don't go like this, right? They go like this. And so I think, again, that this was a passion project of his. Look at M. Night Shyamalan. He came out of the gate with Sixth Sense and hasn't made a good movie since. Right?
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So I guess, does this have to be a great documentary for the filmmakers? Does it have to be a great documentary for reptile people? And that it might not be a very watched documentary? Does that do good things or bad things for us? Your comments.
Well, I think that it would probably do good things for us. I mean, the more people watch it, the more people like you and Phil were talking about. There is a special interest group for everything, and there's so many against reptiles. So you're just adding fuel to the fire, and they will grab onto whatever they can, even the most minuscule things. People tell me all the time when I do a thumbnail that seems like there's a snake striking. Oh, well, it's going to create legislation. Well, I first of all, I don't agree. I think that's ridiculous. It's a thumbnail on a video that got 50,000 views. Like, give me a freaking break, from some idiot YouTuber in Canada, like not even in your country. Second of all, like, this is going to be much bigger than that. But if it became something as big as Tiger King, I know that the I forget what it's called, but the Big Cat Act was passed before that. I was listening to Phil talk about it.
Right.
So I don't know of anything on the book that this would help push, but I don't imagine it's going to create any brand new laws, unless, like I was saying before, there's some fantastical story in, like, of someone losing their life or whatever, right? Like, if they were, I'm so glad they didn't put the Jeff Leibowitz thing in, right? Like, that would make us all look like idiots. I don't know if you remember that guy who was handling the Taipan by the middle and, oh, you can't bite. Like, yeah, like, those guys make us look stupid. So are they going to put people like that to make us look stupid? And, like, for example, guys like Tyler Nolan, I personally like Tyler.
So what?
I wouldn't do what he does with his snakes, or what he did, I guess. I guess he stopped doing the free handling. But he was young, very young when they started doing this. I don't know about him when he was younger, but when I was younger, I was stupid. And if you offered me a bag of money, I probably would have done something stupid for it. So are they going to reveal that they were egging people on to try to get, like, almost get bit by venomous snakes and act stupider than they actually would normally act? And then that makes us all look bad. Is that something?
Sure.
And for me, it doesn't matter, because I can't keep venomous snakes anyway, and I have no interest. But for those of you who can, in certain areas of the United States, that might hurt you guys. Like, those episodes where you're showing these people just flippantly, that's how they're going to show it, flippantly holding cobras, that might affect them. But I don't think it's going to affect me, who keeps, small little monitors and stuff like that.
I agree. I don't know. I mean, what I do know, thanks to Alicia Carpenter, is that Crunchyroll is a streaming platform for anime.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't. Well, I guess Pokemon's anime, I guess, and I try to indoctrinate my children to watch Pokemon. But besides that, I'm not an anime guy. I don't know.
I'm not really an anime guy either. All right, let me just catch up here. So, WW Redhead. I wonder who that could be.
I know her.
It's familiar, but I don't know. I can't place her. She says she also. I also think that so many people watched Tiger King because it was during COVID and couldn't go anywhere.
I agree. It's a great point.
Very valid point. She, dude. You want her contact information? She looks like she might.
Yeah, give me your number. She looks pretty hot.
Yeah, she looks like she should. She would go for a guy like you, I think.
She looks blind. Is that what you're saying?
She's blind. Oh, she's not wearing. She doesn't have 6 eyes. Ducks Are Life says reptiles are a specific niche. Do you say niche or a niche up in Canada? Niche.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like quiche. But people who know little about them are the ones writing laws. So very true.
Yep.
All right, Tom's supposed to be on, but I don't see him waiting. We will wait for him. Do you want to hang out and?
Just kick me out whenever you're ready. Yeah.
No, you can stay on the rest of the time, but we're just kind of waiting for Tom to come on. I hope I gave him the right time.
But to jump on to what Trish said there is, I think she's right. I think during that time, because I know Phil was saying it was 21 or 22. It was 2020. It was like March. It was literally as it was starting, the pandemic was starting, they put out Tiger King. So that, like, it's brand new. Everyone's firstly at home, and they don't know what to do. They've never been in a situation like that before. They've never been out of work. They're not home during the day. What are they going to watch? We're going to watch whatever's on the first page of Netflix, and that was Tiger King. And from the very beginning, it was dudes on meth with no teeth shooting guns and having tigers. Like, it was enthralling right away. It was literally like real life Trailer Park Boys. That's what it was like.
Right.
So I think,
Right.
you know, yeah, and I think that's why everybody watched it, because it was just the right time, right place. Kind of like why my YouTube channel blew up. Right time, right place. Like I put in the work to have good content, I hope, and then COVID happened, and then boom, to the stars. And I think that happened with a lot of YouTube channels. But I think Tiger King is no different. I think that it came out at the perfect time. It would have been great regardless, but it would not have blown up like that without COVID. I agree.
Right. I agree. Okay, so Tom is here, and we're gonna bring Tom on. Yeah, come hang out with us.
Okay, sure.
Ask him whatever questions you want. Okay, here we go. Tom, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm a little bit jet lagged and tired from such a quick trip, but otherwise I'm alive and kicking.
You just went to Los Angeles. That's not jet lag.
No, I've had bad jet lag to Australia and stuff, but still, it was bad enough as old as I am.
Yeah. So how are you?
We didn't stay long. We just flew in the day before, which I was exhausted. Then we got up the next day and had a full day, and then that night the premiere, and then I was up till 11:30, and we had to get up at 4 to make the flight in LAX the next morning. So.
Oh wow, so that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Do you know Adam?
I do.
Hi, Tom.
Over the thing, I like his podcast and stuff. I listen to them sometimes.
Thanks, Tom.
Tom's a fan.
You make good sense sometimes.
One of these days I'll bring.
I try. Thank you.
One of these days I'll bring him down with me when I come visit you, and we can feed him to the Crocs or something. I don't know.
We'll work it out. The method of disposal.
This is live. So first, Tom, thanks for being on the show. Tell me about the premiere. How was it?
Well, I really enjoyed it. To be honest with you, I expected something at least a little bit like Tiger King, but it was nothing like that at all. It was interesting. It was fun to see those old. Somehow they dug up those old clips from me doing TV stuff years and years ago when I was young, and included that of me catching and taking the eye cap off the King Cobra. The first thing without killing him, that with that King Cobra, that was like unbelievable almost. It almost bit him twice.
Yeah, and that's when I saw that, and I was like, okay, so it's going to be that type of fight. But
not for me.
No, right. But at the premiere, did they just? So it's five.
No, we only just saw the one.
You only saw the one. That was going to be my question.
That's
you have to sit there for 5 hours, and yeah, got it. So tell us how you got involved with this documentary in the beginning.
Well, Eric Good and I have been friends going back to the 80s. He used to have a nightclub in New York called Area, which was a weird nightclub, believe me, weird. Andy Warhol, it was his favorite spot, actually. That's how weird it was. And he had reptiles on exhibit inside of the nightclub, like big water monitors and big, like walk-in cages and stuff. And he bought a lot of that stock from me. So I got to meet him. And then when he came back and he said in 2011 that he wanted to do a history of herpetoculture, if you will, the good and the bad, I decided to go ahead and go along with it because it's a story that actually should be told. And when I say bad, we're talking about smuggling animals. We're not talking about me burying stuff in the pine barrens or any of that stuff. For my part, that Hank sounded pretty sinister on there, killing all the animals like that. I could never do that.
Right. We were just talking.
Never even wanted to do that. Never even thought about doing that. Even when I got the Fiji iguanas in, nobody knew I had them. The simplest way out for me would have been just to destroy them or kill them and just bury them and forget about it. But I can't do that with living animals.
So on that point,
I would have done it with green iguanas.
Right. I watched obviously that segment, and you not knowing, is there something wrong with my mics? Is that what's going on here?
No,
There you go.
Okay. I don't know, and I watched that segment of the episode while you struggled with what to do with the iguanas, and I sat there and I said to myself, what would I do in that situation? Here's
what I thought to do with it. I was on really good terms with pretty much every major zoo in the country,
Right.
and the San Diego Zoo had a thriving breeding population of Fiji Island iguanas. Now, remember, at this time, I had a CBW, captive bred wildlife permit from the feds for Varana Day, Crocodile Day, Iguana Day, all that stuff. I purchased a herd of galops from the San Diego Zoo at one point, so I could have bought them or I acquired them from San Diego and just they could have sent them to me, and I already had a permit for it. It's you don't need a permit every transaction with the CBW. It's a blanket one. And I called Tom and explained the circumstances to him, and he suggested that I send them to them and they just sort of keep them and breed them, and later on they'll send me babies or whatever, just like we did with the galops. So I thought that, all in all, it's probably the best thing for the lizards, because they'll have a good home. I don't have to worry about who's got them or what's going on. But after about a year, they send them back because other employees were asking where they came from. And Tom got worried, so he sent them back to me. But he knew all of the events that took place leading up to that. And that'll be in the movie. Tom Schultz is in the movie himself, so I think he's a really old man now. He's older than I am. And, I think he's still in the movie.
Gotcha. So, when did filming first begin?
2011.
2011.
It was supposedly about the history of herpetoculture, so I didn't really think much about it, except I wanted to be a part of it, because certainly I was a part of early herpetoculture here in the U.S.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a very big way. So I thought that I should do this. And then about 7 years later, Mark McCarthy drove up to buy a Gaboon Viper, and he had a snow leopard in his van. And he thought it was unrefrigerated. The van was really cold. And so that's where he got the idea of Tiger King to begin with. And then the next year or two was filmed shooting Tiger King, and he only came down to the house to film once or twice.
Yeah, you were in the first episode of Tiger King.
Right.
Very first scene of the first episode.
That's where he got the idea for Tiger King.
So when he approached you to do this, did he position it as, let's do a documentary on the history of reptiles?
Pretty much.
And so now that you've seen what it is and how you're portrayed and how you are now antagonist A, is antagonist B, what are your thoughts on
Well, I think he had to make a movie and have it interesting, so I think he threw Hank Molt in to do that. Hank Molt is basically a lowlife and always has been.
Oh, he seems like a great guy.
I mean, he buried all those animals in the pine barrens and then killed the Fiji Island iguanas. So come on. I couldn't kill the Fiji Island iguanas and avoid all the trouble, but I couldn't because they're living animals, number one. If they'd been green iguanas, I wouldn't have killed them.
Right.
Much less Fiji Island iguanas. So I was basically horrified.
Yeah.
So Tom, how accurate was it? Like so you're the star of the show, basically. How accurate were the events that happened in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s in comparison to how it actually was? How accurately was it portrayed in the first episode?
Well, so far it's been portrayed pretty truthful, really, as far as I know. I can't speak for everyone in the film, but certainly for my part, he didn't do anything outlandish or crazy or anything like that. And I mean, he went to a lot of trouble to dig up that old television footage of me from so long ago.
So have you seen the rest of the series?
I have not.
You have not? Okay. Because I'm really curious as to what's going to happen like in the next episode.
Well, it's going to get worse.
They would say that again?
It'll get worse. There'll be more, so, I mean, he's got to sell the movie, so it's going to be sensational in some ways, without question.
And what are your feelings on how that sensationalism?
I don't know what to think yet.
Yeah.
So, Dave, you're a filmmaker, right? Do you think that it's possible that Eric Good in 2011, before social media was a big thing, had a vision of it being about Tom and about Hank and maybe about like the actual history, and then now everything has to be so sensational because people's attention spans are so short? Possible. Do you think it's a different vision, or do you think that this is what his plan was the entire time?
Possible. So everybody has the creative process a little bit different, and I wonder what that popping sound is. Just a second.
I don't hear anything.
I do.
No, you're good.
I just hear a popping sound, but I thought it was coming from that mic. But okay. Anyway, I'll talk a little bit about the creative process. When you get an idea, you want to expound on that idea and add to that idea and create that idea. And hang on a second. Can you hear this, or is it just on the computer?
It sounds like your voice is coming through 2 microphones, so it kind of sounds like not quite an echo, but like
Unplug that.
distortion.
Hang on. Just a moment. Echo cancellation. Reduce by. Yeah, I'm not sure where that's from, but it's bouncing back. Tom, do you have YouTube on at the same time that you are filming this right now?
Did I what?
Do you have? Hang on a second. I'm going to just mute your mic real quick. Okay. Okay. So yeah, Tom, this is coming from you. That popping. Are you holding a cell phone?
I am.
All right. Watch when on the bottom of the cell phone where the speaker is. See if you can like hold it just free without touching the bottom of the speakers. There you go. I think that fixed it.
Sounds good now.
I didn't do anything.
Yep. Perfect. Okay, so the creative process. You come up with an idea, then you start expounding on that idea. You add to that idea, and you start investigating. Okay, can I do this? Can I do this? Is this real? Is this real? What? And then once you have all that information, you need to then figure out how you're going to sell that story. And that is when things get a little crunchy, because you want to tell exactly what happened, but you know that if you tell it the way that you're just basically saying this is what happened, it's going to be boring for a viewer to watch. They're going to click off of it. So you always have to do something to keep those viewers hooked and engaged. And so from your original idea to the end result, it's a totally different animal. Tom, we're still getting that really bad interference.
I don't know how to deal with it here. Let me see. What button do I push on the bottom?
Don't touch. So here on the bottom of your camera.
Well, I haven't touched anything.
No, you're good. It's good now. Tom, I have a question for you. So you were filming for a long time. Is there anything that you filmed with Eric that you wish would have made the final cut, but actually didn't make the first episode?
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen the final cut yet. There's 4 more series.
The first episode, rather. Sorry.
The first episode? No, because I didn't know what the first episode was going to be about, so I wasn't disappointed because I didn't know what to expect.
Gotcha.
Although I actually liked the way it came out. I didn't think it was bad at all, and they basically told the truth.
I thought it was great, and I thought that they kind of, you came out smelling like roses. You were kind of like the good guy, whereas Hank was. The fact that you said it was accurate, I think it's great that he did it the way that he did it. It was very interesting to watch, and it kind of told the tale of how the entire industry started with the 2 guys that started it. So I thought it was great.
Yeah. Hank was a different kind, or is a different kind of person. He always was. The thing with killing the animals is probably the worst thing. I had a lot of problems with Hank over the years of his own making, but the thing with killing the animals and the pine barrens and all that, and the Fiji Island iguanas and all that, I just can't imagine anyone that would do that. Bury live animals in the pine barrens. I mean,
that was so difficult to watch.
That was the hardest part.
It was difficult for me to hear, to be honest with you, because I was around at that time, number one. And number two, to hear the Fiji iguana suffered. I never knew what happened exactly to the Fiji iguanas, but now I do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, per Hank. So for him to do that was just, I just don't want anything to do with him ever again.
How long ago was that?
It would have been about 1990 or 1991.
Gotcha. So let me go back and read some questions here. Adam, if you have some questions for Tom.
Sure. So Tom, I think the next episode's more about Mario, like going into the 80s. Are you part of the, or I guess you don't know, but is there a lot more that you would have filmed that could be part of this?
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah,
Tom,
I think I'm probably in every episode, but I'm not sure.
Well,
Yeah.
your face is on the front page, like it's literally the poster. So I was
yeah,
hoping
you're the
so.
poster child now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was hoping so. And like I've listened to a lot of stuff that you do, Tom. And like we did a thing together in Toronto. I don't know if you remember, and we did a
Yeah,
Talk Ben. And every time you open your mouth, I learned something new. So I was really excited that you'd be part of it. So I'm glad that they're kind of they have a through line rather than it being like episodic and everyone's a little bit different. So telling a story through 5 episodes, I'm excited to watch the other 4.
Yeah, me too.
I am too, and I'm extremely curious. I won't miss it next Wednesday night or whatever it is.
Thursday, yeah.
Yeah, Thursday, I think. Yeah. So, Tom, there's a lot. We were talking. The whole point of this live stream is to kind of dispel a lot of the rumors and a lot of the misinformation that's floating around this show. If there is that personified, it's you. There is so much misinformation about you, so much, how did I word this? There's a lot of people that believe things about you that aren't true.
They do.
Let's address that right now. So, what is something that you want to tell the public that people think about you that isn't true?
Well, God, there's many things. One of the things is I wanted to make sure that they picked up from this film, from the beginning to the end, and certainly you saw it in the first chapter there or episode, was my great love and passion for reptiles, and more importantly, my great respect for reptiles. I'm not 78 years old and still have never had to take antivenom or anything like that by accident. I was just very good at what I did, and I just never got bit. I never got hurt, really. The crocodile monitor bite was the worst I've ever been hurt by any reptile ever. And to be honest with you, I would have bit me too, because I had netted her breaking up a fight with another crocodile monitor. And she tore through the net and gently gave me a bite that basically changed my life because it crippled my left index finger.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I never got hurt is I gave them all of the respect that they actually deserve and should have. And that's the one thing I wanted to get across more than anything else. This was a labor of love for me as opposed to glory or money or anything else.
Gotcha. So what is one of the things that you hope that the reptile community takes away from watching this documentary?
What do I hope they take away?
Yeah. At the end of this,
I want them to understand how much I actually love reptiles and how much respect I actually have for them.
And I don't think people think that. And I think that a lot of people, you know, they know about the jail time with the Fiji one.
Oh yeah, I did. I did 5 months.
But I don't think that a lot of people knew why. I think that the rumor out there was that you smuggled these in, got busted for smuggling, and went to jail for it. And that's not what happened.
Well, no, I actually appealed it, and it got thrown out for prosecutorial misconduct because he actually beat me in court by trying to allude that I'm a drug dealer. And one thing I was never into was drugs. I mean, I've never even tried cocaine at my age.
Right.
Even when I was young and it was popular. I mean, I smoked cannabis, but that's it. So I was never like a drug guy. You know what I mean? Now, some of the other people in the movie, and they're going to depict this, while they were delivering shipments of reptiles, they were also delivering shipments of cocaine.
Right.
To the customers that they had. And I never did any of that stuff, ever. My first and foremost was always the reptiles themselves. And because of that, I wanted to see new reptiles. And I probably had more experience with more different kinds of reptiles than anybody alive today.
I agree.
Because I imported and had so many, and I bought so much from other people. And one thing I did rather than smuggle was I bought a lot of animals that were smuggled. You know, that was one of the problems. But, you know, when somebody comes to your door and tries to sell you 20 ring pythons, adults, there had never been any in the U.S., it's pretty hard to turn down. And
Sure.
And I bought them, all of them. They're very expensive to buy, but I bought them. And that went to Ed Silibucky and Hank Molt, because they're the ones that smuggled them in.
Yeah. So Sonia asks, what changes do you want to see in the reptile industry? That's a good question.
That is a good question, and it's one that I've thought of, and I honestly don't have a real good answer for. I hope that we evolve into something a little more reasonable, but again, we still have people keeping giant snakes in little boxes.
Right.
And you're always going to be attacked when you do it. We still have reptile puppy mills. Okay, until we start looking at our own back door, to me, that's much worse than what I did buying smuggled animals. Because I know what, these animals are sentient beings, and I know the level of their intelligence, and I know how they must feel like in that cage where it can't even stretch out.
Right.
Unless somebody takes them out. And I have been opposed to that. What really changed my mind towards reptiles and it put in a factor that made me love them even more was when I had the crocodile farm. I began to realize how all of them are sentient beings, and I began to notice behavior that was very unusual. And yet, like for instance, we used to breed Cuban crocodiles every year for years and years and years. I'd have 2 to 3 clutches. I had 2.4 in a giant outside slurry with 2 ponds, so each male would have its own territory. And robbing the eggs is another whole story of that, which is a nightmare in itself. But their level of intelligence.
Tom, you've got something on your face there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Come on. Sorry.
It's the Tiger King crossover here.
Yeah, right. That's exactly
God.
what it is.
Yeah, he's on the other side. Come on. I like other animals too, as you can see.
Absolutely.
Come on.
So yeah.
Oh, let me know why they want dinner early.
Yeah, she's got her face in my face, pushing constantly. So
Say hi to Stacy for me. How's she feeling?
She's right here. She's feeling a lot better.
Good.
She really enjoyed the movie and everything, and going out there, and it just was. It was different than what I thought, but it was very interesting. I did a question and answer period at the end.
Yep.
Hi, puppy. Go.
All right. So you before the cat made their cameo there. We were talking about. Sorry, hang on a second. Let me just turn this off. I was talking about misinformation and dispelling misinformation about the reptile world, and specifically about you. You and I have known each other now for, I don't even remember, before the great set. Yeah. And one of the things that I always loved about visiting you was I knew that it was going to be an all-day event because you'd sit me down at the kitchen table. That was the first thing we'd do. And you would tell me stories that just blew me away. That was one of my favorite things to do about visiting you and the old farm was not going around the yard and playing with Roscoe, not seeing the crocodile monitors, it was sitting and listening to your story and getting to know you and getting to know what you've gone through and equating that with the reptile world that we have now. We're still getting that awful sound back, and I don't know what that is.
I don't hear it.
Okay, but anyway, I got to know you as a person, and I got to know that a lot of the things that I heard about Tom Crutchfield simply were not true. And so, is this documentary series going to? What would you think that it's going to?
Well, it's a bigger than life thing. I've always been a little bit bigger than life, even years ago when I was real young. I mean, I have been famous in herpetological circles really since the 1980s, probably.
Right.
But we were calling each other then and that, and I had the price list going and all that stuff. So, but it's the first time that I've been famous to the point that I am now, where it's actually been published, nationwide, basically. And I hope people do like the character, although I'm not trying to be anybody other than what I am, because on another hand, I don't really care that much what people think either. So, it is what it is. I'm perfectly satisfied with myself and have come to peace with everything that I've done, certainly. And the main problem that I did with reptiles over all those years, to be honest with you, was selling reptiles to people who couldn't really take care of them, and then the reptiles suffered and died after the fact. And when I used to breed crocodilians, I used to sell the babies to the public. And I knew that most of them would die, but since only about 10% survive in the wild anyway, I thought, who really cares, you know? But the reptiles care because there's, crocodilians in particular sentient beings. I mean, those Cuban crocodiles that are at Gatorland now didn't chase us. They were trained.
Right.
They came out of the water and they fed on voice command, and we hand fed every one of them, all the crocodilians. Otherwise, they try to take the food away from each other, and it's a big problem. So, and we actually went in the water with the Nile crocodiles to feed. We never had a bite ever at the farm, other than like babies and stuff, which we didn't care if it bit us or not, really.
Right.
Had a baby croc can't really hurt you. Hang on a second. Stacy, would you bring me a water, please, ma'am? Or give me the rest of that Diet Coke that was in there that I was.
Dave, I think another point too is with Tom, I think people equate smuggling reptiles with abusing reptiles when it's really not the same thing at all.
No.
Dumping a bunch of reptiles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what people think is they hear that you smuggle.
Reptiles, most of my smuggling was reptiles being sent to me as something other than what they were. And the feds didn't know, so they would just clear the shipment, And other than Fiji iguanas, it didn't matter because sometimes there was already a lot of them here anyway. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, and I think that there's a big difference between like abuse, which I think people probably equate, and it's not that at all. I mean, abusing animals is throwing them in a ditch in the pine barrens and then piling dirt on top of them. Like that's actual abuse. Getting in shipments of ring pythons or Fiji iguanas is not abuse. So I think that maybe that's where a lot of the negativity around Tom is they don't really understand what his part was in the first place. Like he was never hurting animals. And even in the film, it's like Tom says directly, I couldn't kill these animals, even though it probably would have saved my butt. I couldn't do it anyway.
Right.
No, I could never do. I couldn't have done it if they were green iguanas, to be honest with you. And the penalty for green iguanas would have been the same as the Fiji Island iguana. I mean, smuggled is smuggled, and it's the same law. But it wouldn't matter. I'm still not going to go out and kill animals that didn't have anything to do with any of the situation. And I'm just not going to do it.
Tom, I think that's what separates you from the other characters in this documentary is that they cared about the money. You cared about the animals.
Well, it was always about passion with me, remember? It wasn't all about money. I made certainly plenty of money, and I did real well with my life and that, much better than I'm doing over, sadly. But I can't even sell reptiles anymore because I worry about who buys them, if that makes sense. I've sold off most of the remaining collection I had, and the other folks were keeping from me, but I've been very careful of even to who I sell them to.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that bought the Cuban boas sent me pictures of his facilities and everything way ahead of time. He's already got Cuban boas, but that kind of thing's important to me because I've had those snakes 30 years.
Sure. So
they're more than animals. You understand? They're like family members, kind of like you'd see the same if you saw the dog and the 4 cats that we have. It's just, animals really have the same kind of basic civil rights that we do. I mean, if you take them, you definitely, at that point, are responsible for them.
I agree.
And a lot of herpetoculture, even though they say that they love reptiles and that, they'll buy something that they absolutely can't keep. I mean, people want to buy a crocodile monitor and keep it in an 8-foot cage. I mean, come on.
Right. Exactly.
You'll get hurt like that.
Exactly.
Because the croc monitor understands and he resents it. Or it resents it. Believe me, they do. We kept ours. Well, you know how we kept ours, Dad, very humanely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And huge outdoor enclosures.
Absolutely.
They were 12 by 16 feet by 8 feet, planted with pothos, tropical plants, and huge limbs going up 8 feet off the ground. And our croc monitors, literally, I could go out there and call them, and they'll come over. Dad can tell you that.
Yeah.
Voice command.
So if you guys
bite me, which they're not going to do.
Right. And that was one of the coolest things was watching you interact with those crocodile monitors. But guys, if you have any questions for Tom, comment over here. Adam, do you have any further comments or questions for Tom or me?
Sure.
Or the universe.
So definitely not for you, Dave, but for Tom, I have many. Tom, you've had basically like every reptile I can think of in your possession, in your collection. Of all the reptiles you've ever had, which one do you think is the most misunderstood? Which species?
Crocodile monitors, because they thought one monitor researcher actually, who I have a lot of respect for, but he's an absolute idiot for what he thinks about croc monitors because they're based on his own experiences, told me that croc monitors are nothing more than chainsaws with teeth. And I'll bet you money that I can set up croc monitors like I set up down there and take big ones out of the wild and have them tame in less than a year.
Wow.
Where literally you can take them out and walk around on your shoulder outside, or we let Bill walk around the yard, no
Right.
problem. This is an almost 9-foot crocodile monitor.
Well, I think even people in Indonesia, and I got this from you. You were on a podcast with Nick Lillis and Mike Stefani, and you were saying that they can actually flatten their ribs and kind of glide from tree to tree because
They do.
you hypothesize that they eat fruit bats in the wild. And I've never heard anybody but you say that. And even people in Indonesia, where they're from, don't know that. So I kind of figured you were going to say crocodile monitors, but I think they're a really interesting species. Not a species I would ever keep, being that I live in Canada and I can't keep them outside in a big giant enclosure. But definitely one of the coolest, probably in my opinion, even cooler than Komodos, the coolest lizard on earth.
They're actually cooler than Komodos. I've had a lot of experience with Komodos. Not that I've owned Komodos, but with other friends of mine that had them, both here and in Southeast Asia. Indonesia, there's a lot of Komodo dragons that people have. And they're very, very tame for the most part. The Komodo dragon is probably one of the easiest to train of all. And I suspect that croc monitors and Komodos have a lot in common, in intelligence-wise anyway, because there's been a lot of the behavioral stuff done with captive Komodo dragons in zoos throughout the United States with people like Dr. Gordon Burghardt, who's kind of a mentor of mine. I love his work and I love his papers and stuff. And he is rather convinced, like I am, that these animals are far more intelligent than people give them credit for. And I know that for a fact. And I understand the unwelted of reptiles probably as well as anyone on the planet today. And certainly I understand their ethology because I can understand their unwelted. So they're right up there. But, my favorite reptiles are Sakura. And some of them I've had 45 years. Hemingway out there, I've had 45 years. And you met Hemingway on yourself, Dab, at the farm. He was one of the ones we turned loose on the farm. I mean, I had chain link fences dividing my backyard at the old reptile farm. And I had 5 adult Sakura released in a pair in each one of those chain link fences. Now, how fast do you think that a Sakura could get over a chain link fence? It'd take them about a second.
Yeah.
Number one, they could run to the top of it, much less they could run. This is a 4-foot chain link fence. They could run and jump over the fence if they wanted to take a running start. But they never did. They were out 9 years. They had their own territory. Fred and Roscoe were great rivals, and they'd fight each other through the fence all season until breeding season. Then they would climb over and jaw fence with each other, which is sort of a ritual thing, kind of like when you see the monitors wrestling in that. They're not biting each other, but they're opening their mouth and pushing their open mouths on each other's open mouth. I have video after video of that all over the yard. And when they get through fighting, the one that climbed over the fence would climb back to his own territory. I didn't even have to put him back. So when you start seeing stuff like that they do naturally, and what I've been allowed to see that you guys don't know much about, the secret world of reptiles. Because none of my reptiles were afraid of me, and because none of them were afraid of me, they didn't stop doing what they're doing when I came up to look at them.
Right.
They continued. And I saw breeding behavior. I could tell you all the breeding behavior from the very beginning of crocodile monitors. The female circles the male for whatever reason. Just circles and circles and circles the male to try to initiate breeding, if they're ready to go. And we bred them twice. So, and then they lay eggs 6 months after the other egg hatch. They usually lay another clutch of eggs. Tree monitors do that too. We bred blue tree monitors to second generation.
Wow.
Varanus macraei.
Gotcha.
That's what I got back there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I love them. They're actually wonderful. They're named for an old friend of mine, a really good buddy of mine, used to be a dealer in Indonesia named Duncan McCrae. He's the one that discovered them.
He is the guy that created the Bali Reptile Zoo too, I think.
He is.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
very cool.
So Brett Booz asks, are you against using a rack system?
I no. In a general whole, I'm against using a rack system if you're putting an 8-foot retic in a 4-foot box.
Mm-hmm.
I'm opposed to it. If you're keeping ball pythons in little tiny boxes and think that they don't do anything because they live in termite mounds all day and stay in them all night, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, because they're not, I'm against the rack system. But if you keep stuff like baby retics in a rack system are perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
Adult colubrids in bigger rack systems are perfectly fine. I have no problem with that at all. When we had the venom line with the cobras, we had to use boxes because of the number that we had, but we got those boxes that were 36 inches long, the biggest boxes you could buy, basically.
Sure.
But we were putting animals in there only 4 feet long. They could actually stretch out and, almost in the complete box, And I didn't like to do that, but I didn't have any choice. So rack systems are valuable and needed. They're needed tools of herpetoculture. So no, I'm not against boxes at all.
I don't think it's a black and white issue, and I think you said it perfectly. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we've been at this for 2 hours and 40 minutes. I've had 3 of these. So we're gonna cut this cut this over a little bit quick. But I do want to go back to the topic at hand in that documentary. And Tom, I want to know what you would want to see come from, either positive or negative, come from the release of this documentary.
A more positive outlook towards reptiles, and the fact, and I'll tell you something too. And remember, only you heard this, but you'll hear it in the last, the 5th series. I actually say this. I'm the one that came up with the idea of Monster of God for this movie, based on that David Quammen book he wrote. And he went into these dangerous animals that are deadly to man occasionally, but yet are sentient beings and have their own lives, and how it happens and all that. It was one of the more interesting books I've read. And reptiles remind me of that. These animals really want nothing to do with you for the most part. So basically, unless it's a big crocodile and you're swimming in that night with it, or an alligator, or unless you're a small person and a very large reticulated python and you fall asleep in the jungle, you're not going to be attacked by reptiles anywhere. So I'm hoping for a better acceptance of reptiles as animals. Some people don't even believe they're animals. And, I wanted to get across to these animals, and I think you'll see that with me throughout the movie. I mean, you already saw me kissing the rhinoceros iguana.
Mm-hmm.
Do you realize while I was doing that talk, the rhino iguana was sitting on the table inside of the house?
Right? In the kitchen, yeah. I knew where that was.
In the kitchen.
Yeah.
And he sat there for 30 minutes with me while Eric talked to me before he got bored and decided to get off and go walk around the house. He's been in the house lots of times. The Mike Sakura used to come inside of the house. I mean, Stacy used to, when we have to bring the big crocodile monitor in and have to stay in for more than 2 days in a big plastic box, she would let it out in our bedroom and it would watch TV with her. I have beams of that. It's only when both the keeper and the kept lose their fear of each other that the magical understanding can begin. And that's true. As long as that animal has any fear of you, or as long as you have any fear of that animal, it's never, ever going to work.
I agree.
Your relationship with it. And let me tell you why this is more than anything else, and why I say that it applies to both the keeper and the kept. 3 of us, I've had a really good time talking with you this morning. It's been fun. It's been fun talking with both. But if we had one more person come on the show now with doom and gloom and sinister like Hank and stuff, it would change the way all of us feel too. Even though we wouldn't feel like that person, it's going to change from our original feeling.
I agree.
And when you're really afraid of reptiles and you're giving off all that fear, I believe that the reptile picks that up just in your actions, your movements, and everything else, because you don't understand the unwelcome of the animal. And when you do that, you pass the fear on to the animal. And what does the animal do when it's afraid of you? It's going to attack the entity that's scaring it. And so I think that as long as you're afraid a little bit, like I'm not afraid to walk up to a wild, if you put a wild-caught crocodile monitor in the cage, I understand its behavior enough. I bet you I could get to be tongue feeding it in 2 or 3 days. Bet you. Hand feeding it in 2 weeks.
And you've proven that.
I've done that several times just to prove it wasn't a fluke.
Right.
And this Bill, this big wild, he's a wild-caught crocodile monitor. Scarface at Ty Parks. I didn't have room but for one, and then Bill died, sadly, at Kennan's before I could get the cage built for him. Scarface is still alive, and they do anything with that. You could pull it off the top shelf by its front leg. It just doesn't care. Because it does not see you as a threat. It is bonded with humans. All humans have ever done for it is feed it and take care of it. It absolutely does not see you as a threat. Until it sees you as a threat, you're not in any danger at all.
I agree.
And they understand the difference in your hand and food. I've proven that over and over and over again. Feeding live rats to crocodile monitors out of my hand, and with just the head. They just take the head just to show how concise they are, and then let them lick all the rat juice off my hand. No bite, because you're not going to get a bite. But here's what happens when people get accidentally bit by their monitors. First thing is they're afraid of them. They're afraid to do it to start with.
Adam is, yeah.
So well, probably good reason, because you get bit by one, you're not going to like it much, and even a water monitor can hurt you. But anyway, they put the food in with the monitor, and the minute the monitor goes for the food, because it may run up real fast and then it'll stop. It's just tongue your hand and tongue the food and carefully take it. They immediately snatch their hand back involuntarily. They can't stop it because they're so afraid. And when they do that, what happens is that the prey instinct to stop the prey from escaping is set off within the monitor that you're dealing with, or whatever animal it is for that matter. And then it's probably going to bite you to stop the prey from escaping. Even though it would be an accident, it wouldn't be a bad bite, it'd release you, but it would bite. It would try to bite the prey.
Right. Adam, do you have any final questions for Tom?
So, Tom, what you just talked about, like what you're able to do where you can socialize animals, how would you, if someone asks you, like, how can I be like you? How can I either get over my fear of the reptile biting me or get the reptile to trust me? What would you tell that person?
Well, I would tell the person first to understand the unwelted. That comes from the German ethological term unwelt. And what that says is that every animal sees reality in a different way. For instance, the world of a catfish is very different than the world of a monkey. The world of a monkey is very different than the world of a dog. They see things differently. So until you can understand how the species of reptile that you're working with, how it applies that to its environment, and that's its unwelted. The unwelted of the animal dictated that it. I'm just trying to use a sentence so you understand it better. It's hard to understand the ethology. So I would say, for beginners, let the animal come to you. Number one. Number two, don't scare the animal. If you're doing something and the animal pulls away, it means it doesn't like you doing it. So just stop right then, immediately. Stop. Stop continually scaring them. And don't take chances hand feeding them at first, because I don't trust the lack of fear that you would have. In fact, if you've got any sense, you probably do have a fear of hand feeding the monitors. I'm not saying that have the most sense of anybody in the world. I'm saying that I understand what I'm doing a little better than most people. And the proof is, I just never got hurt. And I didn't just start doing it. That film goes back, I was in my 20s in that film, Catching the King Cobra.
So do you, on that note, the way that the documentary opened with the guy with the king cobra, do you know who that is?
Yeah, Al Killian. And to tell you who he is, he used to sell stuff to all the wrestlers like Jake the Snake and all that stuff, and he used to buy a lot of reptiles from me. But he is one out there dude. I love
Seems
Al.
like
I
it.
love
Yeah,
Al
we
Killian,
kind of got that impression.
Yeah.
but he'll do stuff with venomous snakes that actually make me cringe.
Uh-huh.
See, free-handling venomous snakes. First of all, I free-handled snakes, and cobras, and stuff since my late teens. So it's nothing new to me. It's just I never got bit because free-handlers do one of two things: either they trust the snake not to bite them, which I never did on any snake except for May, and number two, shit, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, hang on a minute.
Yeah, I've been doing that for almost 3 hours now.
Yeah, we've been talking a long time, huh?
Yeah, that's all right. I mean,
All right. But anyway, never mind.
well, on that note,
That's old
All right.
age, man, I think. Where's my
Well,
excuse?
Tom, I'll give you the last word on what your thoughts are on anything to do with the documentary.
Well, my remarks are I don't know what to expect exactly.
Okay.
But I don't expect to be featured in sort of any kind of an evil way because I've never been an evil person. I've never really done anything evil. I mean, I've smuggled reptiles, yeah, and I've bought more smuggled reptiles than I actually ever did smuggling reptiles. But being honest with you, I was the best place for them at the time too. And even like I regret selling baby crocodilians, and I stopped selling them like 25 years ago, or 30 years ago probably. You know, I bred and sold a lot of them, and I knew that most of them died, but because only 10% survive in the wild anyway, I justified it until I clicked the sentient part in.
Mm-hmm.
Crocodilians bond quick with their keepers. You don't really realize how calm a crocodile can get until you own a crocodile farm.
True.
How they remember. I didn't even move my own crocodiles because if I did, they would remember and be afraid of me. I had a guy from the outside come, and when he would come, as soon as they could hear his car on the road, I had 40 acres. All the crocodiles and the alligators would jump in the water because they knew it was Little John's truck.
Wow.
So shit like that started slapping me in the face, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And the reptiles taught me.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Tom, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wisdom, sharing your experience with this documentary. I will close it out by saying that I don't think that this documentary is the sky is falling negative impact that a lot of people are fearing that it will have on the reptile industry. Adam, thank you so much for hanging out. Do you have anything to add before I hit this little end screen button?
No, just thanks for having me on, Dave. Tom, pleasure speaking to you again. So yeah, this was fun, and I can't wait to watch the rest of the episodes.
Yeah, me too.
Thank y'all for inviting me.
Absolutely, Tom. And one of these days, I'm going to make it down, and I want to see your new place.
Love to see you. You're always welcome here.
All right. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. You don't buy this, you rent this, and that's what I've been needing to do for a while. So anyway, thank you to everyone who did their super chats and raised money for USARK. And one of these days, I will do another live stream with better mics. And I don't know. I don't do live streams. It's not really my thing. But I'm glad you all were here, and we will talk to you all soon. Rattle on, everyone. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.